Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, Lettuce Head Fanfics. Back with amazing fanfiction. This is the series of What If Deku Had Infinity % One for All. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Izuku, I woke up excited. Today is the day I find out what my quirk is. I can't wait to be a great hero like All Might. I run to my mom's room, nearly bust the door down and start jumping on my mom's bed. She wakes up groggily and then sees me all excited. She lights up and says, I know, today is the day. Go get ready and we'll go to the doctor as soon as possible. I rush to my room to get ready, and I quickly shower, brush my teeth, and put on my All Might onesie. I rush downstairs and see my mother smiling at me while making pancakes. I get even more excited as she puts the pancakes on the table. I jump into the chair and start eating them as fast as possible. Slow down, Izuku, you don't want to choke, do you? My mom asks. I shake my head as I slow down. I still finish quickly, and as we were going out the door, I was screaming, why, I get to see what my quirk is today. I will be as strong as All Might and save everyone with a smile. Inko smiles at her little cinnamon roll and opens the door to the car. No one's POV. The doctor walks into the office after the countless tests and happily says, Izuku has a decently strong quirk. His muscles are super dense, which allows him to take little to no damage from physical attacks. It also increases how fast little Izuku's muscles grow and upgrades his strength a little. Overall, it's not the strongest quirk, but if you try, you can be a great hero. Izuku exclaims happily, Yay, I can be a great hero like All Might. Everyone in the room smiles from his adorableness as he leaves to go home and celebrate his new quirk. He eats his favorite katsudon and goes to the park afterward to meet with Katsuki. Izuku's POV, Hi, Kaken. I got my quirk today. I happily say. What is it? I bet it isn't as good as mine. Katsumi fires back. No, it's not as flashy, but the doctor said I am virtually indestructible and I gain muscle faster than average. I answer a little quieter. What does virtually mean? Not everyone is smart like you, nerd. It doesn't matter what that means, your quirk is not nearly as good as mine, Deku. You are useless. Your quirk can't do anything but protect yourself. You can't be a hero with a quirk like that. That's a villain's quirk. Yeah, it's a villain quirk. You can't help anyone but yourself. I start crying and run as fast as I can back home. I force myself to stop crying before entering my house so my mom wouldn't know that Kaken started bullying me. I enter my house with a fake smile and I go to my room hoping my mom wouldn't notice me, but luck wasn't on my side. She saw me and asked, Did Kaken like your quirk? She asked. Yeah, he loved it. I hate lying to my mother, that's why I didn't want her to see me, but I had to lie because I didn't want to be a tattletale. No one's POV. Bakugo told everyone about Izuku's so-called villain quirk and the bullying began. The bullying didn't faze Izuku much physically because he was indestructible and got desensitized from pain. But it still hurt Izuku mentally and emotionally that nobody believed he could be a hero with his quirk. This just made Izuku steel his resolve and he started training every moment he had. Years went on with the bullying and training, but the bullying was getting notably less after people started getting scared of Izuku from him getting bigger and bigger, in both height and muscle. 10 years later on the last day of school, Izuku had most of the girls admiring him, though he was too dense to notice. The boys started feeling envious from the attention he received. But nobody was bolder than Bakugo, who still bullied Izuku just as much as always even though it was useless. The teacher walked in and said, Time to take the career aptitude test. Everyone groaned but then he said, Just kidding, I know you all want to be heroes anyway. Everyone cheered and Bakugo yelled, Don't lump me with all these extras. They'll be lucky if they could end up being sidekicks to some D-lister. Everyone got angry and started yelling, Hey! That's mean. You're not that good yourself. You underestimate us and overestimate yourself. I aced the mock exams, unlike all you extras. Then a random girl shouted out, Izuku also aced the mock exams. Everyone looked at the girl and then Izuku and everyone started laughing and yelling about how his quirk would prevent him from being a hero. Then the teacher calmed everyone down and pointed out that Katsumi applied to UA. Everyone started talking about how hard it is to get into UA and its acceptance rate. Yeah. I'm the only one from this school that's gonna make it into UA. Oh, Midoriya also applied to UA. The class had mixed responses. Some started laughing while others silently thought he could do it. At the end of class, Izuku started packing up his things until Katsumi took his hero notebook out of his hands. A hero journal? You think you can become a hero with your quirk? She said that as she put the notebook in between both hands, blew it up, and threw it out the window. She started walking out the door and then she said, "If you really want to be a hero," Izuku started getting excited because he thought it was going to be legitimate advice. Pray for a heroic quirk in your next life. She and her goons laughed walking out the door. Izuku went down to pick up the surprisingly intact notebook and started walking home under a bridge. He was so caught up in his thoughts he didn't hear the slime villain behind him open the sewer drain and sneak up behind him until it said, "I medium-sized cover shall be nice." Izuku's head whipped around as he dodged the first tendril and then another and another. That made the slime villain very frustrated and he started getting sloppier. And then All Might of all people showed up and punched the slime villain away. It took a while for Izuku to register what happened, but when he did he blurted out, "All Might, oh my god it's All Might. Can you sign my notebook? You're my favorite hero." "Of course my boy," All Might answered as he grabbed the notebook and signed his hero name. "Wait, I have a question," Izuku said as All Might prepared to jump away. Izuku made a quick decision to grab onto his leg as All Might jumped. All Might felt a weight on his leg and when he looked down, he saw the kid he just met. "I love my fans, but this is a little much," he said before he landed on a building. He was about to jump away again when Izuku half yelled, "Please, I have to ask a question. Can I become a hero with my quirk? Everyone says it's a villain quirk." He explained his quirk, and afterward, All Might thought, "Wow, his quirk could go well with mine, and he seems like he would make a good hero, but I would need some tests." Right after he thought that, an explosion could be heard, and All Might saw Izuku jump off the 15-story building and land without a problem. All Might was surprised but then remembered the explosion and also went toward the sound. Izuku walked up to hear the heroes there saying things like, "I don't have the right quirk for this. We need to wait for backup," which frustrated Izuku. He rushed in and threw his backpack into the slime's eye. This disoriented the villain long enough to grab Katsumi out of the slime and run back to the heroes. Then All Might came and once again subdued the villain. Izuku got praised and scolded, but he turned to the heroes and said, "Come on. I, a junior high student, figured out the villain's weakness in 3 seconds while 3 pros had to wait for backup, because their quirks aren't suitable. Come on, the point of a pro is to risk your own life to save others. And you rely too much on your quirk? Use your head. I didn't even use my quirk at all." The people around reacted with surprise while Izuku walked away. All Might saw this and made the decision to make him his successor. While Izuku was walking home, Katsumi ran up and yelled, "I didn't need your help. I could have done it on my own. I don't owe you anything." "I didn't think you owe me anything. I just helped because it was obvious you did need help, and no one else was helping," Katsumi growled and stomped away. After a few minutes, All Might ran in front of him and deflated. All Might, are you okay?" "Yes, young youth, Midoriya," Izuku completed. "Young Midoriya, I have chosen you to be my successor. If you accept, I will train you, and you will receive my quirk." "Yes, of course. Wait, receive your quirk? That's not how it works. You can't just give a quirk." "Young Midoriya, my quirk is one for all. Everything else goes on as in the anime, with All Might explaining his quirk and the training, while Izuku is super excited. Izuku's POV, "We start next weekend. Meet me at Dagoba Beach, where we will start your training, and I will give you your personal training regimen made specifically for you, by me." All Might said. "Okay," I answered, a little nervous. The next weekend, I arrived at Dagoba Beach early and saw huge piles of trash everywhere. Then All Might came up behind me and startled me. He explained that I needed to clean the entire section of the beach for training. He mentioned that heroes nowadays focus too much on flashy stuff and neglect important community tasks like cleaning up the beach. So, it was my job now. I steeled my nerves and considered it my first step to becoming a hero. I started moving trash around with much difficulty at first, but a week later, it got much easier. I realized that my quirk was helping me progress faster, making it easier and quicker. A month in, the news recognized what I was doing and got footage of me cleaning the beach for a scoop. They came up to interview me after I had just finished moving a pile of trash. I was shirtless in the interview because I forgot to put one on. They asked why I was cleaning the beach, and I answered, "This beach used to be a massive part of the community, and I want to clean it to give back. Also, this would really help with training, so I am cleaning this beach completely quirkless." "But weren't you carrying a car in one hand, a massive pile of trash in the other with even more on your back? It's insane that you're doing this quirkless. You are super strong," the news anchor replied. "Yeah. Guess," I said, turning red from the praise. They featured that on the news, and Katsumi seemed to react strongly. The other girls in class also avoided me a little more. Every time I came close to a girl, they turned red and left. It confused me. The teachers looked at me and muttered under their breath, "So dense." I'm not fully sure what that means, but I assume they mean my muscle density. Still confused. More people started visiting while I was moving trash, mostly girls. Some took pictures, some just stood there in admiration. Some people even asked for an autograph or a picture with me. I always agreed, obviously. 7 months after All Might asked me to clean the beach, I surprised him by finishing 2 months early. All Might was extremely surprised, especially since I did more than just one section. I did all of it. "Young Midoriya, you have exceeded my expectations. Now eat this," he said while presenting me with a strand of his hair. What? "It is needed for you to ingest some of my DNA, with me willing to give OFA to you for it to work. Now eat this." I grabbed the hair and begrudgingly ate it. "Now it will take an hour or 2 for this to work, so come back to train when you feel it working." I agreed and went home to take a shower and a nap. When I woke up, I certainly felt different. I felt like I could do incredible things. I then got up and went back to the beach to see people enjoying it. Not wanting to interrupt, I went to the other side of town, the forest, to train there. But while leaving, I saw construction workers building something in the hut on the beach. I would have to check that out later. When I arrived at the forest, I tried using my new quirk without it working at first. I just looked like I was standing in a clearing doing nothing. I was finally able to draw it out, and when I did, the limb I used it on glowed with energy. I quickly figured out how to spread it around my body. I then tried it on different parts like ears, vocal cords, and eyes. It actually worked. The ears you could guess, and the same with the other 2, but then I used it on my brain. This is when I figured out percentages. When I used it on my brain, it added several points to my IQ and made time seem to slow down. The higher percent I used, the more time slowed and the smarter I got. I also figured out I had no limit to OFA, unlike All Might, whose limit was 100%. But that was his limit. He also figured out that OFA percentages are exponential. So, I became MSTR with OFA in 5 hours. When I went back home, I was exhausted. I got some looks from people that recognized me, but other than that, nothing happened. I kept on training for the last 3 months. It was a massive blur for me until I was finally standing in front of you, admiring its beauty. I was walking up and heard people whispering about me. I just smiled and kept up my pace until I tripped. With all eyes on me, I thought, guess I'll fall, but I caught myself in a push-up position and did a front flip from there to get up. Some people just stared amazed while others just said, "Show off." I entered and sat down in my assigned seat, right next to Katsumi. I thought she was going to sneakily bother me throughout the entire speech, but she just completely ignored me, a little red the whole time. The other girls were glaring at her the entire time, but I didn't notice. When Present Mike was explaining the robots with points, some blue-haired kid got up and started on about how the pamphlet said there were 4 robots and how ashamed the school should be that they had a typo. Present Mike then calmly explained that the fourth robot is worth 0 points and is meant as an obstacle you are meant to avoid if possible. The boy then sat down and apologized. The written test started, and I used OFA in my brain to seemingly slow time and answer everything in 1 minute for the 3-hour test. This caught everyone off guard, making everyone think I have an intelligence quirk, and they counted me out for the practical, not realizing who I am. When he turned around and everyone got a good look at him, they realized he was the kid that cleaned the entire beach without any special abilities. When the written test was finished, everyone was directed to the mock cities to get ready. Izuku saw a nervous girl and went to calm her down when he felt a firm grasp on his shoulder. He saw the same blue-haired kid from earlier and knew this wasn't going to be good. "What do you think you are doing? Are you going to that girl to distract her?" "No, in fact, I was going to help her calm down. Now please let go of me and don't just try to assume what I will be doing." A week was all the other boy could get out before Izuku went to calm the girl down. Izuku went beside her and told her a technique to calm down. It helped her, she thanked him, and they both got ready for the test. Then over the speakers, Present Mike just yelled, "Lulu." While everyone else stood there confused, Izuku took the opportunity to get ahead. He charged his power to 50% and when he took off, there was a massive crater where he was standing and a massive boom. This snapped everyone out of their daze as they started rushing in, only to find a trail of destroyed robots in every direction. When Izuku had over 500 points, he stopped and left robots for everyone else. He was massively excited to show off his new power and this was only 50% of his potential. In the observation room, "Wow, there are a lot of promising students this year," Ectoplasm stated. "Yeah, look at that explosion kid. He's destroying robots left and right," said Snipe. "Wait, guys, look at this recording from City 1. Vlad King said while hitting play on the recording. "Oh," was heard and then a loud boom and a crater at the start. Then robots being destroyed all around the city. When the footage ended, they saw a good-looking green-haired boy in the middle of the city smiling and said, "I should leave robots for everyone else. I don't want to destroy all of them, that would be bad," he said, laughing to himself. The teachers were amazed. And All Might was like, "Yeah, Midoriya. Show them how good you are. I chose a great successor." Then all of the teachers heard, "I call dibs. He's in my class." Everyone turned to see Aizawa. No one expected him of all people to call dibs, especially while yelling. Then Vlad King said, "No, I wanted him to be in my class. He's a good role model. He's the one that cleaned the beach without using his quirk." After that scene, everyone pushed it to the back of their minds, and Nizu pushed the big red button. Izuku POV. Everyone felt the ground shake, looked to the middle, saw 5 0-pointers rising out of the ground, and started running, ignoring the injured students. Izuku, on the other hand, used 25% of his power, got all of the injured stuck students, and gathered them at the entrance. Then he went up to one, jumped up creating a large crater and another boom, causing everyone to look at him. He punched one slightly diagonally and sent it flying in a way that it took down 2 others since they were in a V formation. Then one of the 2 robots left standing started to shake violently and start steaming. Present Mike could barely be heard over it saying, "A critical malfunction has taken place. Run away, it will have a massive explosion." Everyone looked at Izuku standing his ground, preparing a punch. They looked at him like he was taking a big risk. Then it exploded and he punched with all his might. That was what everyone saw when I punched the explosion, and the air pressure alone destroyed it and everything in the general direction of the punch. Everyone was relieved that there were just planes in that direction, all the while their jaws hung open. His shirt was torn, making everyone blush. I then wordlessly powered up OFA to 25% and jumped away, leaving everyone in a shocked state. When he got home, he went straight to his room, tired, and immediately fell asleep. All Might was left confused, wondering how Midoriya was able to use OFA better than he could. Did it evolve? Or did his quirk make OFA more powerful? Nevertheless, he was happy for Midoriya and knew he would become the strongest and best hero in history. 1 week later, he got his results, but they were different from what he was expecting. The principal of UA and Eraserhead were knocking on his door. Of course, he didn't know that until he opened the door, but when he did, he had a mini panic attack. They calmed him down and said that because of his heroic action, they wanted to personally come down and tell him his results. They explained that he passed with flying colors, shattering all previous records in both villain and hero points. They said he would be in Class 1A, and he saw Eraserhead don a small grin. His grin grew when he exclaimed, "I can't believe you are my homeroom teacher, Eraserhead. You're my second favorite hero right behind All Might and a little ahead of Hawks." He went on about how heroic Eraserhead is for doing hero work not for fame or money but for actually saving people. Next Monday, on the first day of school, he got very lost. And I mean very. He finally saw an A and walked right to it, neglecting to look up to see 3. He walked in, and there were a bunch of seniors sitting there looking at him. One senior with blonde hair stood up and asked if he was lost. He nodded. He said his name was Mirio Togata, and Izuku responded with his name. Everyone gasped, and Izuku got confused and panicked until a blue-haired girl got up and dashed towards him. "The Izuku Midoriya?" she asked. "Why yeah," he answered quietly. She squealed in delight, confirming everyone's thoughts. Then she fired off. "Hi, my name is Nijire Hado. What is your quirk? How are you so strong without a quirk? That was you, right?" He didn't know how to answer. "Come on, Nijire, you're making him uncomfortable. You can just take him to 1A, that is where you are going." "Right," Mirio said. He nodded. Nijire then grabbed him by the hand and nearly dragged him to 1. He thanked her as she left, and he was left alone in front of the massive door that led inside the classroom. He opened the door to see Katsumi arguing with the blue-haired kid about respecting property. Then Katsumi made a retort about having a stick up their back and destroying them. As expected. Then everyone saw him, and all chaos broke loose. Everyone charged toward him and started asking questions about his quirk and past accomplishments. Katsumi, surprisingly, is the one that makes them calm down. He noticed a presence hiding and yelled out, "Eraserhead!" Everyone got confused until he got up, also confused, saying, "Wait, no one has ever noticed me before. You really are special." Dramatic pause. "Now everyone go put on your gym clothes and meet me outside." Everyone rushed to the changing rooms and met outside. Aizawa-sensei explained the quirk assessment test, then he threw him the ball and asked what his ball throw was in junior high. He answered 159, and everyone gasped, surprised. He shrugged, and Aizawa-sensei told him to throw the ball with his quirk this time and he could do anything he wanted as long as he didn't step out of the circle. He powered up OFA to 100% and threw it 39 kilometers. Then he said something that surprised everyone. "Why were you holding back?" Everyone looked surprised and looked at him for an answer, and an answer they got. "I didn't want to level the school," he said nonchalantly, making everyone wonder how powerful he really is. "Fair enough," Aizawa-sensei answered. He heard a random student say, "This is going to be so much fun." Then Aizawa got a creepy smile. Everyone shivered as he said, "Fine. Do you think this is fun? The last place gets expelled." Everyone panicked and they carried on doing the rest of the tests. Everyone thought Ida had the 100-meter dash on lockdown until he went. The buzzer went off, and 0.0000000000001 milliseconds later, he was there. The trees around them flattened, the sounds were deafening, and some classes and teachers came outside to inspect the noise, only to realize it was Izuku running. Everyone's sweat dropped and stayed for the rest. The grip strength was next, and people thought that 540 kilograms was impressive. When it was his turn, he used 10% and broke the thing. He was given a bigger one and broke that one too. It was apparently the strongest grip tester ever. Aizawa then pointed out that he used 10x less power there than on the ball throw, and everyone anime dropped. The places ended up being Izuku Midoriya, Katsumi Bakugo, Shuko Todoroki, Mineta Minoru. "No," Mineta cried. And then Aizawa stated how it was a logical ruse to bring out everyone's best. Then Izuku called him out. "That's not what you planned on doing. You expelled the entire class last year, so you just saw potential in us." Aizawa-sensei begrudgingly agreed, and everyone gasped for like the 500th time today. except for the other teachers, who just smirked. Chapter end. Izuku POV. As everyone gathered back in the classroom, Aizawa announced that they had free time for the rest of the PRD. Ida stood up and suggested that we all introduce ourselves. When it was my turn, I hadn't prepared anything and felt nervous with everyone's eyes on me. "Come on, it's your turn," someone encouraged. I shakily got up and said, "Hi, and my name is Izuku Midoriya. And my quirk makes my muscles super dense, allowing me to sustain little to no damage from physical attacks. It also gives me more stamina and endurance and allows me to gain muscle faster." After finishing, I sat down, my face completely red. Many of the girls thought, "So cute," or "must protect." Kirishima then commented, "Wow, that's a lot like my quirk, just better," though he said the last part quietly. Hearing this, I instinctively tried to comfort him, saying, "My protection probably isn't as good as yours, and the strength boost it gives is tiny," even though I was downplaying it. This seemed to make him feel better, and the girls had similar thoughts again. The rest of the day continued with English, history, math, and other subjects. When it was time to go home, Uraraka and Ida asked if they could accompany me to the train station. I agreed, and we set off together. The next day, I arrived at class a little early and decided to take a nap. Momo walked in a few minutes later and blushed upon seeing me sleeping. She sat next to me as others started arriving, with some of the girls blushing as well. I was rudely awakened by All Might bursting through the door, exclaiming, "I am walking through the door like a normal person." Katsumi looked over at me, expecting me to go full fanboy, but I just smirked. All Might explained their hero versus villain training and then said, "But what's being a hero without your costume?" as he pressed a button, revealing everyone's costumes. Excitement filled the room. As everyone walked out, they noticed I was missing. Then they saw a large shadow in the hallway shaped like me. When I walked into the clearing, everyone stared, probably because I was late. "Sorry I was late. My costume was a little hard to put on," I said quietly, hoping no one heard, but they did, making the girls blush and Kirishima wonder even more about my workout routine as my muscles were visible. All Might explain the rules, and these were the matchups. Heroes, villains. Izuku and Jiraiya versus Katsumi and Shuko. Denki and Sato versus Uraraka and Ida. Mineta and Momo versus Kirishima and Hanta. Shoji and Tokoyami versus Ishido and Ojiro. Koji and Yuga versus Tsu and Toru. Jiraiya received curious looks from the other girls while Izuku was blissfully unaware. When Katsumi and Shuko got their 5 minutes to prepare, Izuku started planning. "Kaken will come straight for us, abandoning the bomb. That probably means Todoroki will stay and defend the bomb. Okay, Jiraiya, I want you to keep a lookout, and as soon as you hear Katsumi coming, run the opposite direction and search for the bomb. If you find it, tell me, and I'll try to handle Kaken quickly." "Okay." Jiraiya nodded, satisfied with the plan. When All Might announced that the prep time was over, the heroes went in and started their plan. We started walking around looking for the bomb when Jiraiya bolted, signaling that Kaken was approaching from the opposite direction. I got into a fighting stance in preparation for Katsumi. As Katsumi rounded the corner, she launched an attack. I dodged and charged to 50% OFA. In the blink of an eye, I was in front of Katsumi. I punched her lightly, and she flew through a wall. Katsumi groggily got up and started explaining how her quirk worked. I walked through the aftermath unscathed, surprising everyone in the viewing booth. I then gently knocked Katsumi out and wrapped her up in capture tape just to be sure. Jiraiya then called me with the earpiece, first asking if I was okay and then telling me where the bomb was. I got to the bomb room, preparing for a fight as I had heard some noise earlier. I walked in, seeing Jiraiya half-conscious wrapped up in capture tape. Shuko saw me entering and smirked, thinking I would be just as easy to defeat. She summoned a massive wave of ice towards me, but I dodged easily. "You know what? I'm going to try to defeat you without my quirk. That would be a good challenge, right?" She smirked and said something about me underestimating her, but I didn't care. I rushed at her, and she sent a wave of ice. I punched through the ice, causing her smirk to disappear. As I continued my rush, she panicked and sent another wave of ice, which I easily dodged. She tried hand-to-hand combat, But that wouldn't work on me. I continued, flipping her and wrapping her up while she was in the air. Observation room at the midpoint of the fight. Wow, Izuku is so impressive he destroyed that ice wave without his quirk. Yeah. Wow, did you see that he flipped her and wrapped her up midair? Denki exclaimed. Heroes win. Back to Izuku POV. Yuh, that was too easy. I thought you'd put up a little of a fight. Jiru and Shuko's sweat dropped and nervously laughed. The people in the observation booth had the same reaction. Izuku untied both of them, while they were blushing the whole time and all the other girls were super curious. The boys noticed this and decided to talk to him at lunch. Okay, all of the matchups are over. But I wanted to do a special matchup with everyone in the class against Izuku at the same time. The other teachers will watch this and maybe other students. The class became nervous and started preparing the bomb in the building while the other teachers and students arrived. Many more students arrived than expected, but they all got permission to watch. They all thought this would be a challenge since they didn't know Izuku. They also thought it was overkill until they recognized him as the kid who cleaned the entire beach without a quirk, and the kid who saved countless lives during the entrance exam. Then they began to wonder how the rest of the class could possibly stand up to him. The match began, and I decided to do this without using my quirk too. I quickly found the bomb, but with all 19 students protecting it smartly, all at the same time instead of waves. I rushed in and took out Zero first since he was the closest. I ran up to him, did a fake-out kick, got behind him, and moved him aside. Right after that, I had to dodge a punch matrix style. As Sato stumbled over me after missing, I redirected him into another room. Then I encountered an obstacle. Come on. These were new. Everyone's sweat dropped after I said that. I wasn't even fazed by the challenge sent my way. Then Katsumi began to engage while I calmly walked toward the bomb in the middle of the room. But then I saw Momo smirk, and she was the planner, which meant something was up. This bomb is a fake-out. Good plan but not good enough. Everyone gasped and started to attack me at the same time. I got hit by Momo's staff, to which I grabbed, and while she was still holding on to it, I gently moved her aside. Then I flicked Katsumi, which knocked her out. Then I turned to Shuko with a determined gaze that made her and everyone watching pause. Then I smiled an innocent smile, which made everyone watching curious even though they knew Shuko was going to be challenged. I walked up to Shuko with the smile still present on my face and gently tapped her, which made her pause. Then I saw Mina slide up to me and Ida run up to me at the same time. I caught a punch from Mina and the kick from Ida. I redirected Mina's arm, moving her aside, and casually redirected Ida. Then I stepped onto Mineta's traps. Everyone smirked, thinking they won until I took my shoes off. Then they got curious about my next move. Then Shoji managed to grab me and stick me onto the wall where even more ball were stuck. Everyone thought they won since I had nothing to take off. Wrong, I have skin. I walked off with it tearing off my skin and everyone just gaped at how casually I did that. What's everyone looking at like that? I said, looking around genuinely. Everyone was surprised, and I charged again, accidentally plowing through Toru because I didn't see her. Then I threw Mineta through the wall and suplexed Shoji. Ojiro tried to attack me, but I have more martial arts experience, so I kicked him into the wall. Then I ran up to the bomb and grabbed it before anyone else attacked me. Izuku wins. The rest of class 1A left embarrassed. Then one of them realized, wait, you never even used your quirk. Katsumi yelled. Everyone watching, including the teachers, gasped as I nodded. Yeah, I wanted a challenge. I didn't get one though, I said with a smile. The entire audience reacted with surprise. We went back to class, and Aizawa-sensei announced that we had to choose a class president and vice president. But I was already class president since I was the first-year representative. Wait, I wasn't informed of this. I yelled out. Yeah, I forgot, but you can't change it or pass it on, Aizawa-sensei replied. Ah, that's exactly what I was going to do. Everyone laughed, and my face turned beet red as I once again sank into my chair. Everyone voted for vice president, and Momo got the most votes, including one from Izuku. At lunch, Uraraka, Momo, Mina, Ida, Kirishima, Katsumi, and Shuko sat with me. We happily ate lunch until a loud alarm could be heard saying, "Code 3 alert," over and over again. Everyone got up and started panicking. I got smashed face first into the window just to see that the press made their way onto the property. I jumped into the air, using my voice to calm everyone down. Come on, it's just the press. And either way, we're all training to be heroes, right? Act like it. Everyone immediately calmed down and became embarrassed as they walked to their next class. The class sat down, and Izawa-sensei walked in, announcing that they would be going to the USJ the next day and that they had this PRD off to do whatever they wanted. The teens just started chatting among themselves. The next day, Izuku was somewhat of a legend at the school. Everyone saw the fight, either in person or a recording. Every time he walked around, people were whispering about him, trying to discreetly take pictures of him, and the bolder ones even came up and talked to him. I walked straight to the bus, and I could hear people whispering around me. I don't really want the attention, but it doesn't bother me that much. As I got closer to the bus, I saw Ida trying to direct everyone in a single file line even though he isn't class president. When everyone got on, we just started talking among our little groups. I just tried to fall asleep. As Izuku fell asleep, his head fell on Shuko's shoulder. Her face flushed like a tomato, and she got glared at by every other girl. Mineta and Kaminari noticed Izuku, making everyone blush again and got jealous. "Come on, Izuku, save some girls for us," Mineta half yelled. Izuku woke up to this, confused, looked around and said, "What?" I was genuinely confused. I heard my name, and I woke up. I realized I was on Shuko's shoulder, turned to her, and profusely apologized. Her face just turned even redder. "Do you have a fever?" "Your face is red," I said before putting my hand on her forehead. She just turned even redder, and I became even more confused when people started laughing. I looked around and asked, "What? What's so funny?" Everyone just laughed and thought, "So dense." Aizawa POV. I looked at the scene unfolding in front of me, and I couldn't help but feel bad for Izuku. All the girls like him, but he's too innocent to notice. He's going to have a hard year with them. "Okay, we're here," I called out tiredly. Everyone got up and gawked at the building in front of them. It's kind of funny, actually. Then Class 1B's bus arrived, and my class became confused. I explained that we thought it would be a good idea to have joint training. We walked in as some kids fawned over 13 and some over All Might. 13 began explaining her quirk and how quirks can be dangerous, so I zoned out until Kirishima yelled out, "WH, you even have fake villains. So manly." Then I snapped back to reality and exclaimed, "Those are real villains. Back off, get everyone to safety, 13. Izuku POV. I was shocked when I heard these were real villains. Denki let out some electricity when Aizawa-sensei said that those were real villains. I yelled at Ida to go get backup. He nodded and ran off. The Black Mist Man tisked and came over. "One is gone, but that's not too bad. We still have a few minutes to deal with you all." Then he scattered all of us to different locations throughout the USJ. I landed in the mountain zone with Momo, Jairu, and Denki. When dozens of villains surrounded us, I used my abilities to protect us. Not only did I clear the mountain zone, but I also helped in the other zones. When all of the students came to the place, they saw All Might injured but still trying to fight. Aizawa was struggling with another creature, and Vlad King was facing another challenge. There were creatures called Nomus, and a man with many hands called them his creations. I told everyone to run as I took them on. They looked at me in horror, and I yelled at them to run with determination. They ran but still worried for me as I powered up and faced the challenges head-on. The teachers and students were shocked by my actions. Then the leader, who identified himself as All for One, approached. I gathered my strength and faced him with everything I had. Before you could even blink, I was in front of AFO and managed to daze him with a swift kick. Then I punched him and followed up with an elbow. He fell down, nearly unconscious, and I quickly returned to my class while bringing the teachers. I looked at the stairwell and saw all of the teachers there, amazed by what they had just witnessed. Apparently, they arrived just before I dealt with the Nomus. Then I saw a light exit AFO and start traveling toward Shigaraki. I dashed over and caught it, and they yelled out, as AFO's power faded. Shigaraki shouted, "That was going to be mine. His quirk was gonna be mine." You cheated UV dash, but was interrupted by the mist guy teleporting him away. "What?" I yelled. "I have AFO quirk." Everyone else seemed to realize what this meant too. I was now definitely the most powerful person on the planet. After the whole incident, it came out that someone got the video footage from the cameras, and Izuku was praised yet again by everyone around him. Though this wasn't what he wanted, he was glad he could help. The next day at school, when everyone sat down, they were talking when someone asked, "I wonder who'll be teaching us today?" Aizawa-sensei was super injured after the USJ. Right after that, Aizawa-sensei walked in, surprising everyone. Everyone began asking him how he's doing, and he responded to each question with a simple, "I'm fine." Then he said, "It's not over," causing everyone to panic, thinking more villains were coming. "You still have to prepare for the sports festival." Everyone was skeptical at first, with Mineta questioning why we have to do this after a villain attack. But in the end, everyone agreed it's not a bad idea. Izuku POV. After we got a week off to train for the sports festival, everyone wanted to go out on the first day off and then have joint training. Mineta and Kaminari suggested the pool for training after the day of fun. I didn't want to go, but after even Ida said that it would be good to strengthen our relationship as classmates, I reluctantly agreed. We got to the mall, and Momo suggested we go to a restaurant. She led us through the mall to an expensive-looking restaurant, and I protested, saying I wouldn't be able to afford this. She kindly offered to pay for me, but I shook my head, feeling a bit embarrassed. When we sat down at the table, I looked at the menu to find the cheapest thing I could. The cheapest thing I could find was a sandwich for 2,500 yen. I got that while everyone else got more expensive things like steak or hamburgers. When it came to paying the bill, I paid for my own sandwich, much to the annoyance of the others who wanted to pay for me. Next, we all went to the arcade and played there for a few hours until we felt it was time to leave and do some training. We decided to go to the pool the next day. I went to Nizu because I wanted to go on a patrol kind of like a hero, and I needed his approval. I mostly wanted to do it because I wanted to get some new quirks with AFO. Nizu approved and gave me a temporary license. I was also curious if AFO has evolved at all as OFA does from user to user. I put on my hero costume and started wandering around. After wandering for 15 minutes, I heard a scream. I rushed toward the location and found myself in a dark alley with 4 guys surrounding Momo. "Momo?" I asked. Everyone looked toward me and the crooks smiled. "A new hero we can destroy? Izuku? What are you doing? You don't have a license." Momo asked, confused. "I have a temporary one. Niza let me go on patrol so I can get some new quirks." "About that, what are your quirks?" The thugs listed their quirks, and I realized I could use them to my advantage. They tried to use their quirks on me but failed and got very confused. Then they connected the dots. "Wire T, the kid who beat AFO." Thug 1 said. They tried to run, but in the next second, they were unconscious and tied up. I asked Momo if she was okay, and she said she was. I asked what she was doing, and she said she was walking home from the gym when these guys jumped her and tried to kidnap her. I asked her if she wanted to be skirted home, and she accepted. When we got to her place, I marveled at how big it was. I started leaving, but Momo grabbed my arm and thanked me one more time as Momo's mom, Hina, opened the door. She asked what was going on, and Momo explained what happened. Then she asked, "Is this the boy you're always talking about?" Both teens' faces turned beet red, and Momo panicked, rushed inside, and shut the door. After that, Momo half yelled at her mom, telling her not to embarrass her like that. I just stood there confused. Momo's family and employees laughed at her situation and laughed even harder at my confusion. "Mom, he's very dense. He's probably going to take it that I talk about him badly or something, or maybe not understand this situation at all." I left to go back on duty, and that's how it was for the next week. I just went on patrol and stopped petty crime as I wasn't allowed to do anything major with my temporary license. Finally, the day of the festival arrived. We just finished our first class when we were about to go to lunch. I opened the door to see an ocean of students looking into our class. I panicked and asked what they were doing here. Katsumi said they were scoping out the competition and threatened them to move. I apologized for her behavior and asked them politely to move as we were hungry. Before, the other classes thought we were all stuck-up brats, but after I said that, they changed their opinions, thinking that only some are stuck-up brats. Though some still thought they were better than us, saying things like, "They don't look like much," and things like that. When our class was called out, there was a lot of cheering, but I was saddened when I heard less cheering from the other class. Midnight explained what we would be doing and then called me up to do a speech. I went up there confused, and the first thing I said was, I was not informed that I would have to do a speech, which made everyone in the crowd laugh. But off the top of my head, I hope this festival will be fun to watch for the audience and that the festival will be educational for us participating in it. Good luck and have fun. Everyone cheered after my speech, and I walked away happily. Everyone congratulated me on the great speech, and then Midnight spun the wheel for the first competition. The wheel landed on an obstacle race, and everyone went to the starting position. I decided that I would try to destroy all previous records for the sports festival. I charged up to 100% OFA, some air pressure coming off of me. Right when the buzzer went off, there was a massive crater, and the people closest to me were thrown back. In the next moment, I was at the finish line, stunning everyone. My time was 0.000000000001 milliseconds. I went back to the race when people were in trouble because it wasn't against the rules to help people when they were in trouble, even when you are finished. Then, Midnight explained the cavalry battle and the point systems. When I was given my 1,000,000 points, everyone labeled me as a target and avoided being on my team. I didn't want one anyway. I had a plan. I asked Midnight if I could be alone, and she agreed as long as I don't touch the ground. When the battle started, I sprouted wings, much to the amazement of everyone, and started flying. Then everyone that could fly started coming for me. I massively outmaneuvered them and literally started flying circles around them. To everyone's surprise, I got rid of the wings and went to 5,000,000% OFA. The sheer amount of power exuding from me held me in the air and pushed everyone else away. I just sat there for the last 10 minutes while everyone fought amongst themselves. The teams that got through were 1. Izuku 2. Momo, Todoroki, Ida, Ojiro, and Mina 3. Bakugo, Kirishima, Aoyama, Uraraka, and Shiro 4. Tetsu, Ibra, Monama, Kojiro, and Shinso. We have an hour break before the 1v1 fights, and I went to the cafeteria. I was surprised by the number of people asking me to take a picture with them or something. Of course, I agreed, but it certainly caught me off guard. I ate and hung out alone for a while until I saw all of the girls in cheerwear. I also saw Mineta and Kaminari looking at each other in a satisfied way, giving each other a thumbs up. The girls looked embarrassed and I walked to the boys to give them a piece of my mind. I walked up to them while staring them down. They promptly panicked and tried running away before I grabbed them both. I called the girls over to a room and told them to do whatever they wanted with the boys for the last 15 minutes. They smiled and thanked me, happy that Izuku stood up for them. I stood outside the door and heard muffled sounds for a while before they came out. When they came out, I asked what they did. Izuku POV. I was called into the ring. I was fighting Monama. This was going to be easy with or without my quirk, so I was going to end this quickly. When the signal went off, he taunted me, saying, "Wow, you think you're so good. You are nothing compared to me." I never talk about myself. You're the one talking about how good you are, I retorted. Everyone laughed and I just walked up to Monama. I'll do this quirkless if you're so good. I want to have some fun. Monama looked panicked and I remembered his quirk. What? You want to use my quirk? You couldn't handle it. It would destroy you. You're not fit enough. He scowled and attacked me. I easily dodged and kicked him in the gut. He flew across the ring and I said, "Do you really want to use my quirk? Here, take it," as I activated OFA. Monama smirked, rushed at me, and tried to use my quirk, but it didn't work as he expected. "I told you so," I said victoriously. I grabbed him and put him gently out of bounds, so I won. I felt kind of bad for him, but he deserved it. I walked off to watch the next match, Shinso versus Kojiro. The match started, and Kojiro rushed. Shinso just talked about how lucky he is to have a hero quirk until Kojiro got fed up and answered, "Come on, I know I'm lucky, but that's why I'm trying my hardest to be a hero." Shinso smiled and told him to walk out. And Kojiro actually walked out, confusing everyone. Shinso was declared the winner, and I realized he had a mind control quirk, so I got rid of my mind control resistance so I could get it back later. I didn't want it to be unfair. Next was Katsumi versus Siro. The match started, and Siro immediately taped her and tried to throw her out of the arena. This surprised everyone until Katsumi made a massive wave of ice, completely immobilizing him. Midnight asked if he could move, and Siro answered, "Are you kidding me? Does it look like I can move?" "Fair enough," Midnight answered. The next round was Kirishima versus Tetsu. When the round started, they rushed each other, punched each other in the face the exact same way, and flew back the same amount. Then they pounded each other in the gut a few times in the same exact way, then again in the face. They went on like this for a while, and it was amazing to watch them match each other move for move. Then they delivered one more hit to the head and knocked each other out. They said they were going to do another type of battle later when they regained consciousness. The next match was Ida versus Ibra. The match started, and Ida immediately charged, and Ibra blocked with her vines and then counterattacked. This sent Ida back a good meter as he charged again, this time juking her, making her block, obstructing her vision, and then going behind her. Then he used Recipro Burst and brought her out of the ring. Ida was declared the winner. Then both Kirishima and Tetsu woke up and were called into the stadium. They were going to do an arm wrestle. Well, anyway, they got ready, and their force cancelled out for a few seconds. Then you could see Kirishima gaining some ground and then smashing Tetsu's hand into the table. Kirishima was declared the victor. The next match was Mina versus Aoyama. When the match started, Yuga started blasting lasers at Mina as she gracefully dodged them. She skated on her acid, gradually getting closer while having to dodge lasers at the same time. When she got close, she threw some acid on his laser director thingy, and it made him forfeit. The next match was Katsumi versus Ojiro. The match started, and Katsumi charged. Ojiro jumped and swung his tail at her. She dodged and used her explosions to vault over him and land behind him. She promptly used an explosion, knocking Ojiro over and giving Katsumi the chance to grab him and throw him out of the ring. Finally, the last match of the last round is Momo versus Uraraka. The round started, and the girls charged each other. Momo made some tape, opened the tape, and attacked. Everyone was confused until Momo managed to get behind Uraraka and tape her fingers so she couldn't use her quirk. Then Momo grabbed Uraraka, who couldn't do much else as she got thrown out of the ring. Momo was declared the winner. Finally, I was up again, this time against Shinso. The match started, and Shinso began talking about my hero quirk, trying to provoke me. I calmly replied, "Do you think my quirk was this powerful in the beginning?" "No, I had what everyone called a villain quirk and I got bullied for it. But I didn't accept that. I trained and unlocked a new part that everyone adores. Maybe if you train, you could unlock another part. Plus, you would be great during hostage situations." I said, as everyone in the stands thought I was a dunce. He ordered me to leave the ring, and I just stood there looking at him blankly. Everyone became confused, and I said, "I have trained my mind to such a degree I guess I can resist mind control type quirks, or it could just be my willpower overpowering your quirk." Everyone looked shocked as I approached Shinso, grabbed him as he struggled against my grasp, and put him outside the ring. Everyone cheered as I helped him up and congratulated him on coming this far. When I arrived at my seat, Kirishima versus Momo had already started. Kirishima dashed toward Momo, and she created a shield. Kirishima bashed into the shield, denting it. Everyone cheered as I took more notes. Kirishima pushed Momo back, and Momo tried to push back. She decided to go around him and use his momentum against him, and when they were getting close to the edge, she sidestepped, and Kirishima stumbled out of the ring. Momo looked very happy with herself as she stepped out of the ring while being declared the winner. The next round featured Mina and Shuko. Mina knew she stood little chance but tried to charge anyway. Mina dodged one wave of ice, but another one chipped her. This caused her to lose her balance, and she got hit directly with another wave. Shuko smirked and sent one final wave to send Mina out of bounds. Shuko was declared the winner as she walked away from the ring into the stands. The next round was Katsumi versus Ida. The match started, and Ida charged, knowing it was his only option. Katsumi barely dodged and sent an explosion into his back. This gave him more inertia, tiring him out as he tried to stop. When he finally stopped, he turned to see Katsumi charging him, and when she got to about 3 feet away, she sent a medium-sized explosion, launching Ida out of bounds. Katsumi was declared the winner, and the second round was over. I walked up to the ring, people cheering my name. I wanted to keep it easy on Momo as I didn't want to hurt her. When the match started, we both stood our ground. She was confused as to why I wasn't charging, so I explained that if I charged, it would hurt her more than necessary. She said I underestimated her, so I charged. She created a shield that I shattered, pushing her back a little. While she was off balance, I grabbed her and lightly threw her outside the ring. I was declared the winner, and everyone continued cheering my name. Next up was Katsumi versus Shuko. When the match began, Katsumi charged using explosions to accelerate her movement. She launched herself at Shuko, who blocked with ice and used the same sheet to push Katsumi. However, Katsumi blew up the sheet of ice before it got too far and got immediately hit with another wave. Katsumi was getting dangerously close but was still mocking Shuko, telling her to use her full strength. Shuko didn't answer and kept pushing on. Katsumi flew up and launched down using howitzer impact. Shuko blocked, but the ice broke, and Shuko got pushed into the ground. Shuko got up with difficulty and used her special move, Heaven-Piercing Ice Wave, which fully encased Katsumi for enough time that Shuko was declared the winner. Finally, the final rounds, me versus Shuko. I was determined to convince her to use her fire side, though I didn't know how. The match began, and Shuko launched an ice wave at me. I easily backhanded it like I was shooing it away. We continued like this for a minute until I noticed ice on her. She was shivering, and her movement was slowed down. Why won't you use your fire, Todoroki? Everyone here is giving it their all, but you think you can beat me with half of your power. I yelled. My dad set you up to this, didn't he? Shuko answered. No, I know your dad is a sad excuse for a father, but it's your quirk, not his. You choose what to do with it, not him. If you had the choice to save someone and use your fire side, or let someone suffer but not use your fire side, what would you do? Would you be like your father and be a poor excuse for a hero, or get over your feelings and be a great hero? One flashback later, Shuko ignited her fire side to the amazement of everyone. People applauded and cheered for Izuku and Shuko. I smiled and Shuko asked, "Why are you smiling? I've got both my sides now, you can't win." I smiled and answered, "We'll see about that." She sent a massive arc of ice my way, and I completely jumped it. Then she sent a massive column of fire, and I sent a punch. Izuku jumped over the ice and everyone gasped. Cementos made pillars and yelled, they could hurt each other. Midnight stopped them. Midnight let out her gas, but that didn't matter as all of the pillars got shattered, and huge winds knocked everything away. Everyone gawked at the power of the fight, including the pro heroes watching. The smoke that rose made everyone unable to see and caused the anticipation to rise. When the smoke finally cleared, they could see Izuku with his shirt melted off but otherwise unharmed, and Shuko embedded into the wall on the other side of the arena. Izuku winced at the sight and rushed over to her to get her to Recovery Girl. After that, we had the reward ceremony. I got first, Shuko got second, and Katsumi got third. All Might leapt down to give us the medals, and everyone went ballistic. He said a little encouragement to all of the medalists, and Katsumi was surprisingly calm. Afterward, we got this announcement by Present Mike. We just thought of a special event, and anyone can participate, including the viewers. Everyone in the crowd became excited and wanted to participate. We will have everyone on one team to fight Izuku and see if he is even beatable. Everyone wanted in, but only so many people could fit in the arena, so they opted to do it in the arena. The rules were that everyone would be a hunter, and they had an hour to catch Izuku. Mostly all the teachers, most students, and some viewers were participating. I got a head start to hide in the forest and chose an open clearing. I didn't want to hide, I wanted to have some fun. When the game started, I yelled, "I'm over HE. Come get me." Everyone ran to the sound of my voice and saw me in the middle of a clearing. I motioned for them to come at me. They seemed intimidated, but Momo charged. He threw a punch, and I quickly ducked, grabbed his arm, and sent him back into the arena. Everyone watching saw this on the screen and laughed at his mistake, then resumed the fight. Everyone rushed in. I grabbed Kirishima, who was closest, and moved him aside. I dodged an explosion from Katsumi and moved her back, knocking her out in the process. I noticed people trying to sneak up behind me and jumped away. Then I saw All Might chasing me down. I punched him, sending him through trees. He came back, punched me, and I didn't even react. I told him he could go full strength on me, and he started really trying. I gave him another free punch. He punched me full out. It pushed me back a little, but otherwise didn't faze me. Everyone who saw this backed up in surprise. Then I moved All Might aside, and he was out. I quickly moved behind Snipe, knocking him out. Then I moved quickly to Midnight, tying her hands behind her back. She made a comment that confused me enough to distract me for a few seconds. Because of that, Toru was able to sneak behind me and try tying my hands. I felt a rope wrap around my hands and casually snapped them, moving Toru aside. Then several of Ectoplasm's clones rushed me, and in a split second, they all fell to the ground, and the real one sat next to a tree trunk unconscious. Then I saw the remainder of Class 1A running at me. I moved quickly, and they were all on the ground. Next, I encountered 1B as they surrounded me. They thought they had me until I activated a powerful move briefly and moved everyone away with it. I heard that 5 minutes were remaining. With 2 random people running up to me, I got into a fighting position until they said they only entered this game to talk to me. I let my guard down, which was a mistake. 2 more people jumped out behind me. One of them controlled the earth to lock me in, which I easily destroyed. A piece hit him on the head, knocking him out. The other person made her hands into guns and aimed at me. The projectiles bounced off harmlessly, and the next second she was in the ground a few feet in a hole. The last 2 ran away, and the buzzer went off that time ran out. I collected everyone I had moved aside and brought them to the arena. At this point, no one was shocked that I won, and after some more hanging out and some messing around, we went home tired. The next day, I was going to school. I got into the train, and my hoodie fell off. Someone recognized me, and then everyone rushed over to talk to me and ask for pictures. I got to as many people as I could before my stop came, and some people were disappointed. To those, I quickly took a picture on all of their phones and wrote my autograph on a paper that I stuck in their pocket before anyone could see me move. Everyone left happy, and I got to school on time. When I walked in, everyone was talking about encounters with people who watched the festival. When I walked in, everyone asked me about my encounters. I told them I was trying to hide my face, but my hoodie fell off, so I was swarmed on the train and had to give everyone a picture and autograph. Then Aizawa-sensei walked in, and everyone got in their seats. He explained internships and then showed how many people wanted each person. Izuku, 10,567, you have every hero in Japan, some in America and England asking for you, Aizawa said. Everyone was surprised at this. They thought they would never be surprised by him again. Todoroki, 4,123. Bakugo, 3,556. Everyone was mulling over which hero to choose, and I was having an especially hard time. I've narrowed it down to Endeavor, Gunhead, Best Jeanist, Imi Lady, Death Arms, Kamui Woods, Edge Shot, Gang Orca, and Hawks. Hawks was the most surprising one because he never did internships. Never. Izuku POV. I walked to the cafeteria thinking about my internship. I've narrowed it down to Kamui Woods, MP Lady, and Hawks. Though I feel like I might go to Endeavor, that would only be to challenge him. I think I'll go with Hawks. He's the highest hero on the list, and he's really cool. Plus, I'll be the first person to do an internship with him. I ate lunch, and we walked back into the classroom. Everyone stared in confused silence. Once everyone calmed down, they all sat down. The girls were feeling down until Katsumi accidentally blurted out, "We can share." She quickly covered her mouth, and everyone looked at her in confusion. Then it dawned on everyone, except Izuku, that she actually liked him. The girls realized what she said and turned red. Shuko smiled and nodded slightly. Poor Izuku was confused the entire time. Everyone looked at him and laughed at his bewildered expression. I was very confused about what Katsumi said, but now everyone's laughing at me. I can't help but think I'm missing something here. "Mineta, are you okay?" I ask. "No, leave some girls for the rest of us." Mineta answers, and the girls promptly send him flying into the wall. I flinch, but the day continues semi-normally. I'm getting more glances in my direction than usual, but it's probably because of the sports festival. Then, Midnight walks in, announcing we have to choose our hero names and to be serious about it because it's probably what we'll be sticking with for the rest of our lives. It starts off badly but gradually gets better until my turn. I was the last one and was called up. I still had nothing, and I made a wild grasp in my mind trying to think of anything. When I walk up, I write it down on my board and announce my hero name will be Dikairu. Ochako smiled, remembering how she turned around the meaning of this word for him and kind of flaunted it for the rest of the day as the other girls became increasingly agitated. The next day, I walk in and Shuko asks me to follow her. I do, and she pushes me into a closet on the empty side of the school. I'm confused by this, and she walks in and locks the door. I walked back to class as she cleaned herself up, and when I walked in, everyone asked me where she led me. I said I'd rather not talk about it, and everyone became suspicious, especially because of her showcase yesterday. When she walked in looking particularly smug, everyone became even more suspicious. Some came to the correct conclusion, even though they thought it was impossible. That day, they had to leave for their internships, and while they were leaving, Aizawa-sensei was explaining that we can't do anything unless we were allowed to buy the heroes interning us. I left for Hawks' agency, and when I arrived, I walked up to the receptionist. She kind of just waved me away like I was just a little kid wanting to see Hawks. Then, I told her I was here for the internship, and her attitude changed immediately. She tried redeeming her rudeness, probably so I wouldn't tell Hawks, though I wasn't planning to in the first place. She probably has to deal with many children just waltzing in like they own the place wanting to meet Hawks. She let me up to his room and knocked. He told her to come in, and the first thing I see is him playing video games and eating chicken wings. This is gonna be an amazing internship. He got up, cleaning himself up a little, panicked he made a bad first impression, and I just smiled. The receptionist left for us to get acquainted, and we introduced ourselves. I really need to get rid of my stupid stutter. Then I told him he was tied for my second favorite hero after Eraserhead. He smiled and told me the schedule for the internship. We get up at 6 and do cardio until then we take an hour's break for breakfast and do weights till 3 after then. Then, we have a little break of 15 minutes to get ready for patrol. And then we patrol until when we get back, we stretch until 11 and then we go to bed. I look at him and say, easy. He thinks that I was just trying to look tough. Oh, was he wrong? Hawk's POV. I wake up and go to wake Izuku. He looked special, and that's why I wanted to have him as my very first intern. I hope he can live up to it. I get to the room he is supposed to be in just to find it empty. It was perfectly organized like he never even entered it, even though I saw him getting in bed. Wow, he's something else. Then I hear something in the gym. I warily approach just to see Izuku running laps as a warm-up. Oh, that's a mistake. He's gonna tire himself out later, and he's doing extra. We start doing the workouts, and by breakfast I was pretty tired, but Izuku looked like he hadn't done anything yet. Then he had the audacity to say this was nothing compared to All Might's workout. I felt a little offended, but I also knew it was a joke. I realized how hardworking he is and knew I made the right decision interning him. We went on with the workouts, and the patrolling went without a hitch. Izuku stopped a robbery by himself. I let him, obviously. I felt like a proud older brother when he started getting recognized, and I put my arm around his shoulder, joking around with him. We walked home to finish off the day, and the next day was similar. The day after that, we felt more confident and decided to go to Hosu because of its high crime rate. Izuku POV. We walked down the streets of Hosu when we heard an explosion. We ran towards the sound, and Hawks instructed me to record and said I could use my quirk to help people. When we arrived, there were already a few pro heroes fighting Nomus. I moved quickly, surprising the pro heroes, and managed to take down the Nomus. The pros were amazed by my power, and I just shrugged and walked back to Hawks, who was smiling proudly. Then I received a text from Shuko with a location. Without another word, I jumped off, forgetting to tell Hawks where I was going. He tried to follow me, but I easily outpaced him and arrived at Shuko's location just in time. Stain was about to harm Ida when I intervened. Shuko giggled and told him he was in trouble. I told Stain I wouldn't allow him to hurt anyone. He prepared to fight me, but I stood my ground. When Stain attacked, I countered and knocked him out. Hawks finally found me, and when he opened his eyes, he saw me carrying a tied-up Stain and my friends. Other heroes arrived, and they realized it was all my doing. I handed Stain over to the police. Stain woke up and managed to free himself, but he went on a monologue praising me as a worthy hero. The police were impressed but still needed to address the situation. I showed them the video Hawks had recorded as proof of my actions. The next day, the video of me confronting Stain was posted on HeroTube. While walking to school, I tested out a new quirk I had acquired. I raised a bunny, and it hopped around me playfully. I decided to shadow travel to school, a technique I discovered by accident. I appeared in class, surprising everyone. They all yelled in unison, "Since when can you teleport?" I explained how I acquired the power, and they accepted it. I had an idea and formed a chess table on Momo's desk with my shadows. She was surprised but made the first move. Everyone gathered around to watch the match. They thought Momo was going to win, but at the last moment, I checkmated her, surprising everyone. She asked about my strategy, and I playfully declined to share it. All Might walked in and announced a mini-test to see what we learned at our internships. I was up against Ojiro, Mina, Siro, and Ida. Everyone expected me to win because of my teleportation, but they were curious about who would come in second. The buzzer went off, and I teleported behind All Might, tapping his shoulder and making him jump in surprise. Siro came in second, Ida third, Ojiro fourth, and Mina fifth. After the races, Mineta and Kaminari suggested going to the pool for stamina. Ida overheard and told everyone, and they all agreed to come. We walked to the locker rooms, and after a few seconds, Mineta exclaimed about a hole that led to the girls' locker room. I looked at him menacingly and warned him not to do anything inappropriate. He gulped and covered the hole. I felt he deserved a lesson, so I gave him a stern warning. Little did they know, the girls overheard everything, and their admiration for Izuku grew. Tsu asked Shuko how she felt about sharing him. Meanwhile, Mineta watched the girls play volleyball, still envious of Izuku's luck. I glared at him again, and he immediately noticed the intensity of my stare, yelped, and swam away. We decided it would be a fun idea to race, and when the final rounds came, we jumped, but Katsumi and Shuko didn't activate their quirks. They just fell into the water as I used full cowl to get to another site quickly. Everyone was looking at me confused, and I was confused until I noticed Aizawa using his quirk on me, but my quirk was still active. Now that I think about it, my quirk was harder to control when you girls lost yours. I guess mine is just so powerful it can't be cancelled, I accidentally said out loud. Everyone was puzzled, and I just shrugged it off as OFA's power. We went back to the classroom, and Aizawa-sensei told us about a final test and about summer camp. He said whoever fails does not get to go to the summer camp. Everyone began speculating about what the exam would be and asked me for help studying. I agreed, and we also agreed to meet at Momo's house for a study session. The next day, we all met up and started walking to Momo's house. We arrived, and everyone was marveling at how big it was, and I accidentally said, "It's still cool the second time." Everyone looked at me shocked and started asking me questions. I explained that I helped her get away from some trouble and helped her home. I rang the bell at the gate, and Momo asked who was there. I answered, saying that we were all here for the study session. She let everyone in, and as we walked in, Momo was introducing everyone to her parents. Then she realized, wait, the chef is off today, we can't have snacks. Everyone groaned a little until I stepped in. I can cook. Everyone looked at me. What can you not do? Everyone said in unison. Die. Everyone agreed, and I was led to the kitchen. I took orders from everyone and quickly made all of the food. I walked over holding 4 plates, placing them down in front of the respective people who ordered them. Izuku's friends dug in and immediately lit up. They told everyone how delicious it was, and everyone else could not wait to get their food. He came out with another 4 plates and put them down. The students who got the food did the same thing, and everyone was getting more and more eager to get their food. The next time he came back with 5 plates, 1 being on his head. He set the plates down, and the students who got the food loved it once again. The parents saw all of this and kind of wanted some, but felt it would be weird to ask. He came out with the last of the plates, but instead of sitting down and eating his own meal, he went back to the kitchen. This surprised everyone, and they wanted to know what he was up to. He came back with 2 especially fancy desserts and gave them to Momo's parents. They looked surprised, and Izuku said he saw the look on their faces and decided to make them something. When he sat down to eat his food, he noticed it was half gone. He looked around to find the culprit with his new mind-reading quirk. Mina, this was for me. She looked surprised, and everyone laughed at her saying, I told you so. She asked how he knew, and he said it was a secret. I started helping them study, and after a few hours, we decided to call it and go home. I stayed behind and helped the especially helpless ones until they understood what we were studying. The next day, we arrived in front of the mock city, and we saw a whole bunch of teachers. We're going to be fighting the teachers, aren't we? I asked. They looked astonished, and I explained how obvious it was. They nodded and agreed, and then we saw the 1B kids show up. Apparently, we were going to watch each other's classes' final exams. I was last, and I was fighting against all of the teachers, pro heroes, and the big 3. My classmates weren't even worried for me, but the pros that haven't seen me in action were extremely confused. I walked in, and the buzzer went off. They walked in surrounding me but wearing weights. I'll fix that. Time seemed to slow to a halt, and I walked up to each of the heroes and removed the weights they were wearing. I walked back to the middle and stopped full cowl. The weights fell off of them, and they were confused as I stood in the middle looking proud. You're fighting against me, no need to hold back. It dawned on them that I removed the weight, and one thought was on each of their minds. How fast is this kid? Then, wait. He could have just escaped but chose to fight. This will be his downfall. Kamui Woods rushed in first and started off with his special move. Once I was fully trapped, I casually broke out of it. Then I moved quickly, tapped his neck, and left him out of the fight. Then I moved quickly to all might and pushed him out of bounds, and grabbed the robot Nizu was in, took it apart, grabbed Nizu, ran to the edge, and placed him out of bounds. Lady rushed me, and Snipe tried to stop me. The attempts were ineffective, which caused Empty Lady to pause and look between us two. She looked at Snipe and asked, "Those are RBB bullets, right?" He shook his head no, which gave him Lady a fright. She got over it and rushed me, growing in size. Before she could reach her full size, I jumped up to her face and lightly tapped her. This caused her to fall over on Snipe and Hound Dog. Before she could actually fall on them, though, I caught him Lady effortlessly as she was 30 foot tall. I placed her down gently and moved Snipe and Hound Dog out of bounds, causing them to be out of the fight. I winced a little and turned towards a concerned Big Three. I said, "I'll go easy on you. I won't use my quirk." They relaxed a little before I rushed them. I tried to tap Mirio, but my hand went through him. I smiled, saying how good of a quirk that is, but there is one fatal flaw. I turned to Nijire and tried to tap her, but Mirio took it instead. There we go. That's the fatal flaw. I wasn't even going to hit her. I grabbed Nijire and kicked Tamaki, sending him flying before he could do anything. I rushed to the edge and placed Nijire out of bounds. I turned to Midnight, and she has a determined look in her eye as I walked toward her. In the viewing box after catching Empty Lady, they were going crazy about how he caught Empty Lady, who is 30 foot tall at the time. Then Izuku pushed Snipe and Hound Dog, and they went wild over the force of the push. He doesn't even look like he's trying. Shiro yelled. Monama was trying to look like he wasn't impressed, but everyone could tell he was super impressed. When he takes down the big three without using his quirk, 1A just didn't care anymore, while 1B was screaming. Then he started walking toward midnight, and they were all anxious to see what would happen next. Izuku POV. Apparently, I didn't knock All Might out of bounds because he came in for a massive punch while I was walking toward midnight. He barely moved me, and when I looked over at him, a chill went down everyone's spine. I grabbed him and threw him at an angle into a random direction. It would take a while for him to land. I heard a boom and looked toward All Might. He punched so that it would force him back into the ring. Unluckily for him, though, he landed right next to me. I grabbed him from behind and did a suplex, burying him into the ground. I continued my walk toward midnight, but this time I was interrupted by a blast of fire from Endeavor. I looked over at him, then at Shuko and smiled. "This is for you," I mouthed. She smiled and I turned toward Endeavor, whose smile vanished. I walked toward him slowly and stood in front of him, daring him to make the first move. I decided to not use my quirk so this fight could last longer. I punched him, causing him to double over, then I kneed him, and when he bent back I got behind him, raised him up, and slammed him on the ground. I grabbed him and threw him behind me, causing him to take down a building. His arrogance is his downfall. He wanted me to have the first move. That was a mistake. I turned to Hawks and sympathetically smiled and blitzed him. I didn't want to hurt him because he was so nice, so I just blitzed to the edge and dropped him off. Next minute, I walked over to her, grabbed her, and casually tossed her out of the arena. I turned to Power Loader, cautiously avoiding his traps, and I found him underground. This is when I realized I never used my other quirks against the teachers. So I teleported Power Loader out of his little hole to the surface using shadow travel. I did a wind blast to knock him outside the arena. I looked at Ectoplasm and his many clones. I made a Tommy gun out of my shadows and carefully shot down only the clones. The gun disappeared as Ectoplasm made a giant version of himself. For that, I made a rocket launcher and shot it down. I used the smoke as cover to come out of his shadow, which was behind him. He looked around for me for a few seconds until I tapped on his back, and his head snapped around. I grabbed him with one hand and threw him, knocking him out. I looked at my final opponent, Death Arms. He gulped, and I blitzed him and then flicked him, knocking him out of bounds. Did I mention this only took 1.5 minutes? Well, now I did. I was declared the winner, and I walked into the viewing room with Class 1B going crazy and my own class looking slightly impressed. The next day, we were all in class, and Kirishima, Sato, Kaminari, Mina, and Shiro were upset about failing. I tell them there is a chance that they will be going, and they tell me to stop giving them hope. When Aizawa-sensei walks in, what does he say? That everyone is going to camp. Everyone erupts in cheers until Aizawa-sensei says that the failing students will not be able to have as much fun because they will be stuck to train more. The mood dims a little, but everyone is still happy that everyone is going. The 5 that failed come over and ask me how I knew. I just answered, educated guess. They nodded, knowing Aizawa-sensei. And then Ida asks Aizawa-sensei how we can trust him if he keeps lying. He shrugs and says they have to. The battle had finally concluded, leaving the heroes to catch their breath amidst the aftermath. The air was thick with the lingering tension of the fight, but relief began to settle in as the dust cleared. That was intense, said Alex, wiping sweat from his brow. But we did it. Lena nodded, her expression a mix of exhaustion and pride. We worked together and pulled through. Everyone did their part. The group gathered, exchanging smiles and words of encouragement. Despite the challenges they faced, their bond had only grown stronger. What's next? Asked Jamie, looking around at the team. We need to regroup and plan our next move, replied Sarah, her leadership qualities shining through. There's still much to be done, and we can't let our guard down. As they prepared to move forward, the conversation shifted to lighter topics, allowing them a moment of respite. The camaraderie among them was palpable, a testament to the trials they had overcome together. The scene transitioned smoothly, setting the stage for the next chapter in their journey. The heroes knew that more challenges awaited, but they were ready to face them head-on, united and determined. Chapter End. Izuku POV. I was about to go home after the test when All Might ran up to me all excited. Hey Izuku, I got an invitation to go to I Island, and I get to bring one extra person. Young Izuku, do you want to go to I Island with me? I gawked at him and started nodding enthusiastically. I laughed to myself because of the way All Might asked me, like a teenager asking their crush to a dance. I started to run home and then ran back to All Might because I needed to know when the flight was. I asked him, he told me. I realized the flight was soon and ran home to pack. The next day I met up with All Might at the airport. We were both getting significant recognition as All Might was in his hero form to bypass security. We got into our seats and I started hearing whispers around because All Might couldn't deflate due to the crowd. I saw some famous inventors around us and started internally fanboying. Time skip to landing brought to you by Izuku having a fanboy overload. The plane landed and everyone had to go through a state-of-the-art security system, which was super cool. Just as you would expect from I Island. When we walked into the plaza, a guide approached us to show us around. She saw us and exclaimed, "Oh my god, All Might, and the boy Izuku." I looked confused. How did she know my name? A crowd rushed over, and it took half an hour to sign everything and take pictures. All Might said we needed to hurry, or we'd be late. Then I saw a girl bouncing on a pogo stick, and All Might yelled, "Melissa!" I looked over at him in confusion, and the girl, Melissa, jumped into his arms, the pogo stick retracting into a bracelet. They had a small conversation, but I wasn't paying attention. Then All Might suddenly introduced me while I was looking around. My head snapped over to him, and Melissa marveled over me. I once again looked confused, but she explained that my name was leaked on the internet. "Oh, that explains it," I said. She giggled and introduced herself. This time, it was my turn to marvel at her. She was the daughter of the famed David Shield? She giggled again, and I covered my mouth, realizing I said that out loud. We walked over to the offices so All Might could surprise his old friend. All Might walked in, completely catching David off guard. He nearly fell out of his chair and got up quickly to hug All Might. They talked for a moment, and David told Melissa to show me around. She was showing me all of the coolest inventions when I heard a voice behind me, "Who's this Izuku?" I turned around to see Uraraka, Momo, and Jair. I told them that this was Melissa, and she was showing me around. They nodded and asked Melissa if there was anywhere good to eat. We walked up to a fast food place, and I sat at a separate table so the girls could get to know each other. I saw Kaminari and Mineta walk up to me, and they explained they wanted extra money, so they applied here for the time being. Then they got super close and asked me who Melissa was and if I could set them up with her. They kept asking, and I regretted sitting at this table alone. Little did Izuku know, the girls had already gotten to know each other and were talking about something else, Izuku. When Izuku had enough of the boys, he stood up and just walked away, alone. The other girls quickly got up and followed him. They walked around aimlessly for a little while until they came across a game. He saw Katsumi go and take down 15 dummies in 14 seconds. The announcer said it was the new best. Then Shuko walked up, beating her record and getting a time of 4 seconds by using giant ice spikes. Katsumi looked up at him and asked him what he was doing here and challenged him to beat her time. The rest of the spectators pushed him onto the field, Shuko and Katsumi watching confidently. The spectators were impressed with the green lightning coming off of Izuku. When the game started, nobody saw anything at all. Just him moving an inch from his starting position and walking away. Everyone became confused until the commentators stuttered out, "We have a new record." "What?" 0.00000001 milliseconds. "How?" The spectators just gawked at him walking away. Shuko's and Katsumi's confident grins disappeared. Apparently, the rest of his class came right before he started. I left feeling super cool. We walked around as a class some more, and Melissa gave everyone tickets to the party since her dad ran the place. We happily walked off to get ready and met up in a room next to the party room. We had to wait a while for the girls to arrive, but when they did, Mineta and Kaminari were overly excited. Embarrassed, I grabbed both of them by the face and moved them aside. Everyone ignored this because they agreed with my actions. I stared at them, getting the message across to not do that again. Our two classes started walking to the party when an alarm sounded. It said there was a bomb threat and told everyone to stay in their rooms. Everyone around me panicked, and I told them to follow me. I grabbed everyone, and we moved to a safer location. Everyone appeared above the party room, and All Might was there. I told Jiru to tell us what All Might was going to say. I signaled All Might and pointed to Jiru, and he gave us the rundown. I nod and run off. They blindly follow me. We ran up the stairs, encountering a few thugs along the way. I easily knocked them out without using my quirk, so it wasn't illegal. I assumed the people in the control room noticed us because they closed all of the doors. This didn't bother me because I went straight through them. We got split up halfway there, so it was just me and Melissa. We made our way to the top just to hear that David staged the whole thing. We come out and ask him what he means, and he tells us about his invention. We ask him if taking hostages and hurting people were part of the act, and he looked very confused. Then the main villain came out and did some sort of monologue explaining that he is a real villain and that he wants the device. Then he looks at Melissa and adds, "I think I'll take your daughter too," he sneers while saying that. Everyone else in the room looked disgusted with him, while the other villains looked pleased. He surprises me by knocking me off the tower with a piece of sheet metal. I landed a mile away in a hole of my own. I'd have to get back there quickly. As I get up, I rush back to the building. When I get to the base, I power up OFA again and jump to the top. When I land, I see 1A, 1B, and All Might fighting the villain who's currently holding a struggling Melissa. I tell everyone to step back and they do, believing I know what I'm doing. I power up to 300% OFA and rush towards him, only my lightning visible behind me. He sends a massive cube of metal my way and I easily punch through it and appear right in front of him. I grab him by the throat, lifting him. This briefly disrupts his concentration, so the giant mech he was sitting in fell apart. Faster than anyone could process, I let Wolfram go, ran down with everything in my perspective perfectly still. I ran down collecting all of the metal and making it into a ball, then I jumped back up to Wolfram, grab him and bring him down to the roof. I grab Melissa to make sure she doesn't fall and place her down carefully. To everyone else, this happened in an instant, so it took them a little while to process it. There was Wolfram, lying barely conscious, and I told everyone to have at him, though I had Melissa go first. Once they were done dealing with Wolfram, we descended the tower and handed him and his gang off to the police. We had to talk to the new team who somehow got to Island super fast. We stayed for a few days before heading back home, and when we got home we had a surprise ready. Since we keep getting attacked wherever we go, we've decided to put you all in dorms, Aizawa-sensei announced at our first homeroom back. Everyone cheered, but for different reasons. The girls so they could get closer to Izuku, the boys for their own reasons, and Mineta, well, you know. He dismissed us and told us to go get our things to pack up and bring it to the dorms. I went home and decided not to bring all of my merch. I wanted for Mom to keep some as a memory, and I didn't need them as much anymore. I got back to the dorms first since I decided not to pack that much. I'll go back later for the rest of my clothes. I unpacked quickly enough to finish right when the others started coming in. I helped my friends bring their stuff to their rooms and they seemed very appreciative. While Izuku was resting in his room, baking a cake, Mina had the bright idea to have a room competition. Since Izuku's room was last, they well got to him last. At this point, Izuku was changing, and as luck would have it, Mina burst in at this point. Izuku panics and nearly jumps out the window until realizing that's worse. Mina saw him and quickly shut the door. Her friends asking what happened. She slid down the door grinning slightly, and the others were about to open the door, but she stopped them and quietly said, "I caught him changing." The other girls looked at her enviously while the boys looked absolutely horrified. Back to the now changed Izuku, he curled up on the bed crying slightly out of embarrassment. "What, does he have a small room?" Mineta yelled out happily. Mina shook her head and said, "Huge," and passed out. A few minutes later, the group came back with a now conscious Mina to come and apologize about the intrusion. When they knocked and opened the door, they saw him laying on his bed in just shorts, screaming into his pillow, shaking his head. They laughed a little at the sight and moved along. They shoved Mina forward, and she tapped on his back. He jumped so high he hit his head on the ceiling and nearly fell out of the window. She looked at Izuku bashfully and apologized. I kinda chuckled dismissively and waved it off. Then she leaned in close and said, I kinda liked it, I could show you something to get even. The rest of the class heard this and became embarrassed because of her. Izuku's face just flushed completely red and shook his head rapidly, leaning back against the wall for space. Mina pouted and everyone chuckled awkwardly. Then everyone heard a ding like in Sato's room and turned to see yet another cake. Of course, he can bake, everyone thought at the same time. They rushed over and devoured the cake, leaving a sulking Izuku muttering, I was going to eat that. Today was my cheat day, I haven't had sweets since I was 6. Everyone cringed when he said that, and the girls felt kind of bad for eating his cake after eating Sato's too. The next few days went as usual, but Izuku had an idea. To come here, I said. The floating clothes came over to my desk and asked what? I told her to take my hand and to put it onto her forehead. She became confused by this but did it anyway. When I felt my hand land on her supposed forehead, I took her quirk away. Ojiro almost fell out of his chair. Everyone, including me, knows that Ojiro had a crush on Toru. But now everyone could see her. She squealed in delight and hugged me. My face turned red and I kind of pushed her off me, saying it was fine. After that, the day went on normally, except for more blushes from Ojiro. But to be fair, Toru is appealing. We decided to play a game of truth or dare since we haven't hung out yet. It was a pretty normal game of truth or dare, but when it got to the last one, Mineta dared Momo to spend the night with one of the boys, for some reason thinking he or his best friend Denki had a chance. Ida immediately said this was a bad idea, but nobody paid him any mind. Momo immediately eyed Izuku, not that he noticed. He wasn't paying attention. The other girls got jealous knowing who she would choose, but they tried to keep it to themselves. When Izuku was getting into bed and getting comfortable, he heard a knock on his door. Confused, he got up and opened it just to see Momo in her pajamas. He was very confused and asked what she was doing here. The other students watched from around the corner as Momo asked if he remembered the dare. Izuku shook his head no, and Momo explained it to him. He nodded and asked if she had decided yet. Momo's sweat dropped and said she decided on Izuku, as he would probably be the most respectful. She came up with that lie on the spot and everyone knew the other reason. Izuku nodded, saying he'll be sleeping on the floor, and Momo panicked, saying that the dare said she had to be in bed with him. Izuku looked confused. He asked why she cared so much and nobody would know. Momo turned red, saying something about keeping promises. Surprising Momo again with his denseness, he nodded, saying that was a fair reason. Izuku got onto the very edge of the bed, telling her to get in. She got in and they lay there awkwardly for a few seconds. Then, Momo lied, saying she was cold and asked if it was okay for her to get closer. Izuku nodded warily and scooted closer to Momo. After a few minutes, Momo was latched onto a very uncomfortable Izuku. She was extremely delighted, feeling close to her crush, and he was still pretty out of it. She giggled again, cuddling up next to him and falling asleep quickly. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the city, Alex and Jamie sat on the rooftop, their legs dangling over the edge. The day's events had left them both contemplative, and the silence between them was comfortable, filled with unspoken understanding. Do you ever wonder what it would be like to just leave everything behind? Jamie asked, breaking the silence, their voice barely above a whisper. Alex turned to look at Jamie, noticing the way the fading lights softened their features. Sometimes, Alex admitted. But then I think about all the people I'd miss. The connections we've made. Jamie nodded, their gaze fixed on the skyline. Yeah, I get that. It's just things have been so intense lately. It's nice to imagine a simpler life. They sat in silence for a while longer, each lost in their thoughts. The city below began to twinkle with lights as night fully embraced the world around them. Finally, Alex spoke up, their voice filled with determination. No matter what happens, we'll face it together. We've come this far, and I don't plan on giving up now. Jamie smiled, a sense of peace washing over them. Together, they echoed, feeling the weight of the world lift slightly from their shoulders. As the stars began to appear in the night sky, they both knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them side by side. The bond they shared was unbreakable, and in that moment, it was all that mattered. Izuku POV. After everything at Island, the training camp was postponed. But the day finally came, and everyone was super excited. When Aizawa-sensei finally came in and told everyone to follow him, we all energetically got up. I heard him say, "Problem children," under his breath, and I chuckled. He looked at me skeptically and I grinned. He nodded to himself, and we continued walking. When we finally got to the bus, I was supposed to sit next to Katsumi. I was told it would be a long ride, so I fell asleep by the window. Noon POV. Katsumi looked a little disappointed that Izuku didn't fall asleep on her shoulder, but that changed when they hit a bump on the road, and his head flopped over onto her shoulder. She secretly thanked her luck, and all of the other girls were envious of her. She cheered in her mind while making faces at the other girls. All the while Aizawa-sensei watched this and smiled lightly. The boys were envious of Izuku, even though he wasn't doing this on purpose. They encountered another bump on the road, and Izuku's head fell onto Katsumi's lap. Her face turned red, but she didn't protest. Feeling triumphant, Katsumi also fell asleep. When they finally got there, Izuku woke up first and quickly got up with a completely red face. This woke Katsumi up, and she growled angrily. In a few minutes, everyone was out of the bus, and Mineta was complaining about needing to use the bathroom. Then, the pussycats came out, and Izuku yelped a little in surprise, causing all of the girls in his class to blush. The pussycats did their entrance and explained the camp a little more in-depth. Mineta asked how much longer we have to drive, and the pros smirked. They said that we have to get there all the way across the forest. Izuku smirked, and the pros saw, and a shiver went down their spine. He was planning something. One of the pussycats put their hands on the ground, and the ground launched everyone out into the forest, while Izuku calmly stepped back, seeing this coming. Then he walked past the pros, waved, and jumped down to the rest of the students. Izuku smirked again and told everyone to group around him. When they all came, he told all of them to grab each other, and he jumped into his shadow with everyone following him. They appeared right in front of the building a few seconds later and waited. When the pros arrived an hour later, they saw all of the students there waiting completely fine except for a tired Izuku. Ida explained what he did, and the pros nodded, half expecting this outcome. Izuku saw Koda and walked up to him and introduced himself. Koda got upset and tried hitting him, but Izuku's reflexes were quick, and he caught his hand. Izuku slowly walked away because of the awkward situation, while Koda just got more upset. The pussycats told us we need to make our own food, and that someone had to make Izuku some since he carried the whole class. Katsumi looked triumphant again because she was secretly practicing making katsudon. She said she would do it since she knew Izuku's favorite food. They went off to cook while Izuku just continued lying on the ground. After dinner was announced ready, Izuku sluggishly walked over to the tables and sat down next to Katsumi. When he tried the katsudon, he perked up and started devouring it. "I didn't know you knew how to cook," Izuku said. Katsumi, yet again victorious, just nodded. All of the girls began glaring at Katsumi, annoyed that they couldn't get points with Izuku. When Izuku finished devouring his food, he hugged Katsumi, thanking her for the delicious meal. She blushed at this, and Mineta mumbled, "Stupid Izuku getting all of the attention." The girls ganged up on him for being weird and for bashing on their collective crush. After everyone settled down and went to their respective rooms, they tried forcing themselves to sleep because they could only imagine the grueling training that was going on the next day. They were woken up to start training, but they didn't know what to do with Izuku since he was advanced enough. It was decided that Izuku could just hang out with the pussycats and Koda. Izuku just played around and watched his class in 1B, while also analyzing their quirks and giving them tips. He walked up to Momo. "Hey Momo, can't you use different structures to create different items? If you use a crystallized structure, you will not only consume fewer resources, but the items you create will be stronger." Momo looked at him in shock and nodded, muttering under her breath, "Why didn't I think of that?" Momo tried to make her signature staff out of crystal and succeeded quickly. She looked at Izuku happily and quickly hugged him. Izuku turned completely red. Next, Izuku went over to Katsumi to give her advice. "Katsumi, Try placing sweat in one spot, leaving and then exploding that one spot. It's a great advantage for trapping. Also, try whipping sweat around with other motions. Like kick your sweat, and blow it up for a bigger hit. Katsumi looked at him, and everyone else thought she was going to blow up literally and figuratively for giving her advice without her asking for it. Instead, she brightened up, saying that it's a great idea. She threw some sweat at a tree, let it seep in, and after a few seconds, detonated it. It completely obliterated the tree since the explosion started from the inside and not the outside. Katsumi looked elated at the near-infinite possibilities of her new techniques. A few minutes later, Izuku had another idea. He went up to Toru and asked, "Your quirk works by refracting light, yes?" She answered with a simple, yes. He told her to focus on the light around her. She closed her eyes and presumably started to do what he said. "Now, grab my hand," she blushed, though she knew nobody could see it. She grabbed Izuku's hand, and he told her to block the light from coming to him. Both classes were looking on at this point. Toru focused even harder and tried to block the light from reaching Izuku. Parts of Izuku started to blot away and come back continuously until he finally went invisible. Then he said, "Try to keep this up, I'm letting go." He let go, but stayed invisible. Everyone cheered for Toru's massive accomplishment. This broke her concentration, and Izuku came back to the visible spectrum. Then he said to try that with herself, but the other way around. She tried and failed and tried again. After a few minutes, people started working on their own quirks again. But Izuku never left, cheering her on and telling her she could do it. After a while, Izuku said he was going to go, but that he still believed in her. An hour later, a scream could be heard, and everyone's heads snapped to the location of the sound. They saw Toru standing there completely visible. She cheered, obviously excited. Then she realized something that would change everything. She wasn't focusing. She learned to toggle her invisibility completely. She thought she would have to keep focusing to stay visible, but that wasn't true. She trained this again for a few more minutes, being able to toggle her invisibility fairly easily. After a long day of working on quirks, everyone decided to relax in the hot spring. After a few minutes, everyone caught Mineta staring at the wall. He took a ball off of his head, and people could guess what he was going to do. Mineta started feeling a deep intent coming from behind him. He snapped around to see all of the guys looking at Izuku in surprise as he was the one releasing the intent, and Izuku was looking at him. Mineta quickly jumped back into the hot spring. Kota smiled a little witnessing the ordeal. When they got out, they were told about the test of courage by Aizawa. They were excited and looking forward to the next day. After another full day of training, everyone but Izuku could barely move. Both classes started getting excited when they realized that the test of courage was going to start soon. In an hour, everyone was ready, and after a few people had left, Izuku smelled smoke. He looked up and saw a blue fire. Izuku panicked a little and ran towards the center of camp just to see the pussycats facing villains. He quickly helped the pussycats away from the villains. The villains looked at Izuku, and a villain that looked like a lizard said, "We can't hurt him. He's the one Stain proclaimed as worthy." Izuku scowled at them, saying he had no trouble with facing them. Izuku quickly rushed at them, easily taking them out. He turned toward the pussycats and told them he knows where Kota is, and he'll go check on him. Good thing he did. When he arrived, he saw the infamous villain Muscular staring Kota down. Izuku walked in front of Kota, telling Muscular that he has to go through him to get to Kota. Muscular laughed, saying it's not a problem. Little did he know, it is a problem. Muscular charged Izuku, and Izuku punched him with full strength. The punch shoved him back just a little bit to the great surprise of Izuku. Muscular laughed and asked if that's all Izuku has. Izuku's expression changed to a determined one. He looked up at Muscular and increased his power. The air pressure alone was pushing Muscular back while Izuku told Kota to run. Izuku walked up to Muscular and punched him into the mountain. Izuku rethought his decision to make Kota run and told him to come to him instead. Izuku grabbed Kota and Muscular in one arm each and leaped back to the plaza. When he got back, he placed Muscular with the other villains and gave Kota to the pussycats. After that, Izuku ran to the gaseous area. When he arrived, he saw some Class 1B students looking like they were about to pass out from the gas. Izuku waved the gas away, much to the surprise of the villain controlling it, and Izuku knocked the villain out. He grabbed the students and the villain and brought them to the plaza. After that, he once again departed to a massive racket being caused by Tokoyami's dark shadow. On the way, he ran into Uraraka and Tsu getting attacked by a villain. The villain looked at him and tried to run away. Izuku easily caught up to her and knocked her out, quickly bringing everyone back to the plaza. He overheard some villains talking on the way back about their target. He paled when he heard their target, Katsumi. He quickly leaped in that direction to see a villain with many scars and a villain with 2 personalities. When the scarred villain saw Izuku, he immediately attacked, sending a burst of blue fire at him. Thinking he got him, he turned back to the other villain just to see Izuku walking right through it as if nothing happened. And he looked determined. Izuku dashed at them and quickly dispatched them, leaving them at the plaza. Izuku thought to himself how badly he got distracted and went to Tokoyami's location. Izuku saw Shoji carrying Mineta, hiding and avoiding Tokoyami. Izuku immediately thought of a plan. Izuku got Dark Shadow's attention and ran towards where he thought Katsumi was. He thanked his luck as he saw Katsumi come into view but became worried when he saw her fighting a villain alongside Shuko. He got Katsumi's attention, and she immediately knew what to do. She lit explosions in the direction of Dark Shadow to calm him down, and thankfully it worked. When Dark Shadow calmed down, Izuku realized they were still being attacked by a villain. Izuku walked out, and the villain attacked. His sharp teeth bounced off of Izuku, and some even broke. The villain became scared and tried to run away, but Izuku appeared beside him and knocked him into the ground. There was a crater where he landed, and Izuku grimaced. He took everyone to the plaza quickly. Izuku saw a random figure trying to run away, and he ran into the forest after it. Running through the branches of the tree, he was getting closer to the figure, which he presumed was a villain. Izuku caught up a few seconds later and grabbed the villain. Izuku grabbed the villain and brought them down to the ground, finally getting a good look at them. The villain was wearing a weird mask and had a marble in his hand. Izuku quickly knocked him out, and the marble started growing into the figure of Katsumi? Now that he thinks about it, Katsumi was missing from the plaza. Katsumi gasps for breath and hugs Izuku tightly. Izuku held Katsumi in a supportive position, making her blush, and grabbed the villain, and put them on his back. When he got back to the plaza, he heard cheers from his classmates and teachers cheering him on for facing every villain. It took a few hours for police and ambulances to arrive since the camp was so remote. Everyone had calmed down since then, but they heard more cars coming. Of course, the news would be here. The news interviewed everyone there, and everyone pointed out that Izuku single-handedly faced every villain that the other students were struggling with. When they came to Izuku, his face was all red from the attention he was getting. They kept asking him questions, and he tried answering without passing out. After that day, Izuku's popularity skyrocketed. Everyone in Japan knew his name and expected him to be the next big thing. Izuku was feeling overwhelmed by the attention he was receiving after the recent events at the camp. He understood it was part of being a hero, but he wasn't used to so much recognition. As he walked to class, everyone greeted him warmly, and he responded politely. Once in class, he overheard Aizawa talking about a raid, which piqued his interest. At the end of the day, he approached Aizawa-sensei to inquire about it. Despite initial reluctance, Aizawa agreed to let Izuku observe, provided he kept it a secret. The next day, Izuku left class early under the guise of an emergency, donned his hero costume, and headed to the raid location. Upon arrival, he was warmly greeted by fellow heroes, including Hawks and All Might. The raid took place at an unexpected location, a seemingly abandoned bar. The heroes quickly subdued the villains, and Izuku was in awe of their skills. He realized this was the future he aspired to. Back at school, his classmates were concerned about his family, but he assured them everything was fine. Aizawa-sensei announced that first-year students would participate in the Provisional license exam, a rare opportunity usually reserved for upperclassmen. The class was abuzz with excitement. Midnight-sensei informed them they would train on special moves, and Izuku began brainstorming ideas. Katsumi was determined to impress everyone with her special moves during the training session. As they entered the gym, she noticed Deku chuckling to himself, which unnerved her slightly. She wondered what he was planning. I broke out in a cold sweat and slowly inched to the other side of the group. I looked around and the others had the same idea. He looked around, smirking sheepishly. I feel like my special moves will really make an impact, he says. Follow me, Aizawa sighs. Aizawa goes in the opposite direction and Deku shyly followed him. Izuku POV. Aizawa-sensei took me to an open field and told me to practice here. I had an idea. If I could power up OFA to a high enough degree, I could control the massive amount of energy coming from me and utilize it in a few ways. 1. I could use it to slow down fast enemies or defeat extremely physically resistant villains. 2. I could power up a large amount of energy and discharge it all at once to cause a large explosion. My third idea is probably my most powerful. I could channel a large percent of OFA into my eyes to make time slow down to the point that it looks completely still. Then I need to try to evenly distribute OFA across my body so I could move. This last one would take the largest amount of control, while the explosion would probably take the least. With that, I should start with the explosion. I took a deep breath and started charging a large percent of OFA. I should start small. After I got to 1000%, I focused on the energy without losing control of OFA. I tried focusing on the energy around me and tried to absorb it. Instead, I lost control, and my OFA percentage spiked, and I nearly passed out. I fell on my knees and let out a breath I didn't know I was holding in. It took about half an hour of repetition before I could successfully absorb the energy around me. I should probably come up with a separate name for the energy since I don't think it's exactly electricity. Maybe just I have no idea. I'll think it over later. Wait, what about karma? Maybe. If I come up with something better, I'll change it. Okay, back to the point. I figured out the first move. I could efficiently charge up and discharge a blast. It takes some time to prepare, but it's very powerful. I think I should call this Nova Bomb. Yeah. Next, I should try to send my karma ahead of me to affect opponents. Depending on the amount of power, it could either just sting or have a stronger impact. Again, I should start with a small amount of power. I powered up 10% OFA, and a small amount of karma buzzed around me. I should get a target. I zipped out to find a small target. I decided to try it out on a small log I found near my original location. I powered up some karma in my finger and imitated a gunshot. I didn't expect it to work on the first try kinda. I guess since it was pure energy, it was more powerful than expected and it completely blew the log apart. I excitedly jumped around. It was getting easier to control karma. What should I name this? I unwittingly imitated Tsu, putting my finger to my chin while thinking. Bolt shot. I kinda like that. Okay, time to practice some more. After half an hour or so, I understood how much power to use for specific things. I also came up with a separate version, Bolt Cannon. I charge it in either 1 or 2 hands depending on how much power is needed. Time for the last one. Normally when I charge up a large amount of OFA, it comes out as wind pressure, and the power it adds with each percent is less and less. Oh, that gives me a new idea. I don't know if this would be useful, but if I could use OFA to either add only speed or strength and not at the same time. I'll think about it later. First, I should probably try purifying my power, making sure none of it is dispersed around me. I charged up to 1000% OFA, and the pressure around me increased dramatically. I pulled all of the karma around me into me. Now, I have to focus on not releasing this. I started charging it more and more, seeing how far I could go, and I immediately noticed a difference. Everything was slowing down enormously. Instead of each percent meaning less, it seemed to be getting exponentially better. I was getting exhausted really quickly. I topped out at around 1500%, though not like I needed to go higher, everything was practically standing still. I slowly released the power built up inside of me. I knew if I released it all at once, I would cause a lot of damage. After I released most of it, I collapsed from exhaustion and just laid on the ground, trying to catch my breath. Aizawa POV. I continued hearing explosions from the location where I put Midoriya. I know it's probably his power moves, but I have to check. I rushed over to the hill I put him on and I was in for a surprise. I arrived at the hill and gasped at the pure destruction. There were massive craters along with some trails like something landed here and dragged itself in the ground to stop. One thing was missing though, Midoriya. I looked around for about a minute when I heard raspy breathing. I looked in that direction and I saw Midoriya in his own little hole. I gasped once again. I hurried over to Midoriya. I crouched down beside him and asked him if he was okay. He smiled weakly, nodded, and simply said, "Tired." I was worried for him. I know I'm not supposed to have favorites, but Midoriya really is my favorite. I can't help it. He's so powerful, but he doesn't let it go to his head like some others. He continues training and improving to a point where I think he's going to be unstoppable. On top of being determined, he was just the most innocent person ever. Sure, that's not the best as a hero, but it's good to keep morale in citizens alive. It was at least better than All Might's personality. It is also pretty obvious he is quite popular. He unknowingly has many admirers. So after all of this, it would be pretty obvious that I'm worried about him when he's in this condition. I picked him up and slung him over my shoulders so he's hanging onto my back. I smiled a little bit looking back over to the destruction he's caused. I slowly walked back over to Gym Gamma. I got back in a few minutes and came back to most of the students with worried expressions all talking. "Get back to your work, you lazy brats," I yelled, stirring Midoriya a little. He looked up and noticed he was hanging off my back. He seemed to panic a little trying to get off. I held on not letting him let go. "Come on, you're exhausted, get some rest." He seemed to calm himself a little and went back to sleep on my back. I slowly laid him down on the ground and looked up to see the students watching me. I activated my quirk to scare them without waking Midoriya. They continued to look at me questioningly. I sighed and motioned to them to follow me. I walked back to the hill with the class following me. As we approached the hill, I motioned for them to look. They looked on with amazing expressions. Shoko POV, we followed Aizawa-sensei, while I was thinking about what happened earlier. It was adorable, Aizawa-sensei bringing in Izuku on his back like a father and son. We suddenly stopped in front of a massive hill, and Aizawa-sensei motioned for us to look. I looked out in front of me and noticed massive craters littering the hill. I was utterly speechless. I knew Izuku was powerful, but this was a new record. My admiration for Midoriya grew a little, and that is when I decided I was going to be there for him. I smiled to myself a little while immersed in my thoughts of the future with Izuku. Momo POV, I was slightly worried. First Aizawa-sensei carried Midoriya into Gym Gamma, and then he of all people conceded. He started leading us and now we're at this hill. We walked up the hill and I could immediately see everything fall into place. Wow, just wow. This much destruction is just incredible. I could feel my face heat up as I thought of Izuku. It can't be. Every time I think about him I blush. I can't. This can't be. I can't have a crush on Izuku. I mean, he's smart, nice, talented. Wait. I didn't mean to think about that. Yep, it's final. I definitely have a massive crush on Izuku. TSU POV, I followed Aizawa-sensei. He had a sly smirk. I was starting to get kinda scared. Was there a villain that could knock out Izuku? Is Aizawa-sensei like this because he took out a villain that Izuku couldn't? Never mind. I looked upon the hill ridden with massive holes. I was right next to Mina and it sounded like she was overwhelmed, but I was too interested in what was in front of me to care. As per my habit, I put my finger on my chin and wondered what Izuku could have been working on. I could feel my cheeks start to heat up as I thought of Izuku training. Mina POV, I skipped behind Aizawa-sensei. I was happy to have a break. I spent so long trying to come up with super moves and could only come up with two things. My acid shield and stream. Why were we out here again? Right? Aizawa wanted to show us something. We finally arrived at some big-looking hill. I looked down and nearly lost my breath because I tried to breathe in while gasping. I caught my breath and started appreciating the damage in front of me. I could only come up with some moderately powerful moves while Izuku destroyed an entire hill. Then again, his quirk is powerful, but still maybe I should study with Izuku. I could accomplish two things with that. I could get smarter and I could get closer to Izuku. Maybe I'm not as clueless as everyone thinks. A sly smile creeps upon my face as I think about how hard it will be to get Izuku's attention away from everyone else. Suddenly I get an amazing idea. Yes. This should work. Toru POV. I was skipping along beside my BFF Mina wondering where Aizawa could be leading us. I know it has something to do with Izuku, but I still have no idea. After a little while, we arrived at a hill that was covered in holes. I gaped at the sight. I'm so glad no one can see me right now. I thought about Izuku covering this hill in holes. His power is massive. I'm getting slightly flustered just thinking about it. Again, I'm glad I can turn invisible. Katsumi POV. I was frustrated. I was just getting somewhere with my special moves and now it's interrupted. I can't disobey Aizawa though. I don't want to get expelled. We arrived at a pitiful-looking hill. We climb it a little and I can hear the extras gasp. I had to push my way to the front since these extras had the audacity to get in front of me. Mina looks like she's overwhelmed. I look out in front of me and whoa. He wasn't kidding when he said his special moves would level the gym. I'm supposed to be the best. Deku can't possibly be better, but better him than anyone else. What? No one can possibly be better than me. Where are the cameras? I'm on a prank show. Someone helped him for sure. I started looking around trying to find cameras and Aizawa looked at me weirdly. I was about to glare at him but I remembered I'd rather not be expelled. I growled slightly and accepted it. I did admire the destruction though. I've always loved destruction. Maybe Deku did it for me? No, that's silly. He dislikes me after everything I did to him for sure. I sadly look at the ground and think about how much I want Deku to forgive me. Then make peace. What? Ignore that last part. I don't know what came over me. This is the second time in like 2 minutes though. Does that mean it's true? Do I like that silly Deku? No, that's impossible. I look over the hill one more time contemplating my feelings. Achiko POV. Is Izuku okay? He looked beaten. Did a villain attack him? Oh no, is he okay? I should ask Aizawa-sensei. But he's so calm. That means nothing bad happened, right? Aga, what's going on? I noticed my cheeks growing a deeper red than normal. I tried hiding my face. This happened every time I think about Deku. Do I love him? If so, I understand why anyone would fall for him, including me. He's so cute, heroic, selfless, smart. I erupt in red, and I got a few worried stares from my classmates. I need to learn how to control myself. I didn't notice the group stopped. I only realized after running into the back of Jiro. I quickly apologize and go around everyone to the front. I gasped when I saw the hill in front of me. It was completely covered in massive craters. If he loves me back then he could definitely protect me. Jiro POV. While I was working, I could hear booms coming from this direction. Was that all Midoriya? Probably. I stopped at the edge of the hill and felt someone bump into me. I heard a meek, "I'm sorry," but when I turned around, there was no one there. Probably Achiko. I turned back around to admire the scene caused by Midoriya. I started playing with my extended earlobes. Wait. I normally only do that when I'm flustered or nervous. I quickly stopped, but I turned to see Momo staring at me with a sly smile. A blush grew on my face and I turned to face the other way. When I think about it, I do get nervous around Midoriya. I always thought there was no one I would like. I always thought I would be a loner in life. But I just had to go and fall for Izuku. He would never like me back, not with the other girls in our class. They obviously like him too, much to the dismay of Mineta. I want to get closer to Izuku. I want a chance. Izuku POV. I opened my eyes and light immediately burned my eyes. I quickly shut my eyes and allowed them to readjust to the light level. I sat up and looked around. I was in the gym. Oh no, the gym was empty. I sprang up. Did they forget about me? I looked around but there was no clock. Right? Aizawa-sensei doesn't like clocks. He says they distract us, which is kind of true, but in this situation, I would like to know what time it is. I looked outside. I think it was about noon. Maybe a little later. That means everyone should still be here. I looked around. There were no major scuffs or signs of a true struggle. That means they probably weren't taken. Also, if they were taken, I probably would have been too. Also, there probably aren't many situations where someone could kidnap the near entirety of Class 1A with a few teachers. I remember the USJ, but we had more teachers here, and we as a class got stronger. I started jogging to the hill I was training at, though I'm not sure why. I saw the class there looking out to my work. I calmed down when I noticed them. They were appreciating my training. I walked up behind my classmates and stood next to Shoko. She noticed my presence and jumped up surprisingly high. She yelped, gaining the attention of the others. "You scared me, Midoriya," Shoko stated. I grinned slightly, rubbing the back of my neck. I nodded, not really knowing what to do. I apologized and looked back in front of me, admiring my handiwork. The class looked at me in what I assume is awe. I smiled at them and started walking back to the dorms. I turned so I would be walking backward. "We're done, right? I want to go back to the dorm, I'm beat." They started following me back when Aizawa-sensei yelled at them to get back to work. He then nodded in my direction, basically saying I could go rest. I got to the dorms and right before I could get into the dorms, I saw Itsuka snooping around. I called out to her to get her attention. "Hui, Itsuka. What are you doing?" She jumped slightly, turned around and smiled. "I wanted to find Momo. I wanted her to help our class study." "Oh, I could go get her." No, it's okay. Can you help? We wanted to do it right now. You also have good grades, right? Come to think of it, she said she was ranked second in class. Do you know who's first? I stuttered slightly. I am. Really? That's great. Can you please help? In one's POV, Itsuka was ecstatic. She always asked Momo for help because she was too shy to ask Izuku. She really liked him, and this would be the perfect opportunity to get to know him. Itsuka led Izuku to the 1B dorms. While she was doing that, she was thinking about Izuku. She knew perfectly well that he was extremely popular with the other girls. This made Itsuka a little jealous, but she couldn't do anything about it. She wondered what the other girls' reactions would be to seeing Izuku. She giggled to herself, imagining what would happen. They finally got to the 1B dorms, and Itsuka led Izuku to their improvised study room. Both Izuku and Itsuka could hear some bickering as they approached. They didn't pay attention to that, though. The fight ended immediately when Itsuka walked in. Her classmates smiled and greeted her and Momo. Needless to say, they were surprised when Izuku walked in behind Itsuka. Monama, who had an obvious crush on Momo, though many people do, leaped up, pointed at Izuku, and yelled at him. "What is he doing here? He's not Momo. Momo is much better than him." In fact, Izuku is ranked higher than Momo in the class standing, and he's the class president, Itsuka replied. Izuku chuckled slightly, not noticing the other girls' surprise and quick attempt to clean themselves up. "Pony, this might be easier for you with him here because I heard he's pretty fluent in English." Pony lit up and rushed over to Izuku quickly. She hugged him and thanked him. A confused Izuku shakily accepted the thanks and lightly hugged back. Pony, who was now embarrassed, rushed back to her seat to get ready. Before the tutoring could begin, Itsuka waved Izuku over. As Izuku rounded the corner, Itsuka leaned in and whispered, "I like you. And I know there are others that like you. You will be mine and no one else's. Now, don't tell anyone this happened. Okay?" She finished with a sly smile, and Izuku nodded slightly, feeling a bit overwhelmed. They walked back to the study room together and sat down at opposite ends. Izuku sat next to Pony since she had the worst grades and thus needed more help. They started their tutoring session, and after an hour, Momo burst through apologizing, saying she fell asleep and forgot after training. Monama happily accepted the apology, shooing Izuku out. That's when Momo noticed Izuku. She yelped in surprise. "Oh, you guys got Izuku to replace me," she said, smiling. "Good choice." Monama's sly smirk dropped. No. Now that you're here, wonderful Momo, Izuku can leave." Everyone turned to Monama. "Simp much," was the only thing going through their heads. "No, Izuku is smarter than me, he's a better tutor anyways," Momo said, not caring about Monama's feelings. "Though I can sit in, it will allow us to help a lot more." She noticed how close Itsuka was to Izuku. Monama made space for Momo to sit next to him, but instead, Momo sat between Izuku and Itsuka. Kinoko playfully nudged Monama, who was too focused on his frustration towards Izuku to react. Throughout the tutoring session, Monama was glaring at Izuku, occasionally glancing at Momo. After the session ended, Momo and Izuku walked back to their dorms, chatting along the way. The next few days passed quickly as they prepared for the exam. On the weekend before, they decided to play a game. Mina suggested they play Never Have I Ever. Mina, Toru, Izuku, Bakugo, Todoroki, Momo, and Tsu joined in. They started with 5 fingers each. Mina went first. Never have I ever not liked dancing. Bakugo, Momo, Todoroki, and Izuku put a finger down. Izuku went next. Never have I ever been a bully, he said, looking directly at Bakugo. She put a finger down sheepishly. Never have I ever been bullied. Izuku and Todoroki put a finger down. I can change that, Izuku joked, prompting everyone to react playfully. The game continued with everyone teasing each other until they got tired and fell asleep in the living room. A few days later, they were on the bus, mentally preparing to compete with hundreds of other students. The storm had finally passed, leaving the air crisp and fresh. The group gathered in the living room, the atmosphere a mix of relief and anticipation. Glad that's over, Alex said, sinking into the couch. I thought we'd never get the power back. Jamie nodded, glancing out the window. Yeah, it was pretty intense. But at least we can finally relax. The conversation shifted to lighter topics, with laughter filling the room. Despite the challenges they'd faced, the bond between them had only grown stronger. Later, as the evening settled in, they found themselves discussing plans for the future. We should definitely do this again, Sam suggested, a smile on their face. It's nice to have everyone together. Absolutely, agreed Taylor. It's been a while since we've all been in the same place. As the night wore on, they shared stories and dreams, the warmth of friendship wrapping around them like a comforting blanket. The challenges of the past days seemed distant now, replaced by a sense of hope and camaraderie. With the storm behind them, they knew they could face whatever came next, together.